Chapter 1354. H. You foreign devil, you dare to be so arrogant. A delicate rebuke came from the side. The one who spoke was none other than the newly appointed head captain of the 7 hero sword guards, Wang Xiaoran. Wang Xiaoran's talent was extremely high and she was loyal to the villa. Thus, Xia who pushed her to this position. Before imperial concubine Ju went into seclusion, she specially passed on 10 years of cultivation to her. Imperial concubine Ju's cultivation in these 10 years was not weak. In an instant, Wang Xiaoran's strength soared and entered the peak of perfection. After that, Wang Xiaoran had to rely on her own cultivation to break through. The current Wang Xiaoran had crescent eyebrows, starry eyes, red lips, and white teeth. Compared to the delicate and pretty little girl in the past, she was many times more beautiful. In the past, Wang Xiaoran was more innocent, but at this moment, she had a kind of heroic charm. She used a purple hairband to tie her hair up and casually tied it behind her back. She also wore a golden arrow sleeve robe, but on the outside was a black cardigan with red dragon patterns. The clothes of the sword guards were more shapely, and Wang Xiaoran, who practiced martial arts all year round, was even more curvaceous. Her body was more slender and healthier than ordinary beauties. The 2 pieces of clothing hung down to her slender and beautiful thighs. The legs of a female martial artist did not have the slightest bit of fat. Every part was so perfect and well proportioned, causing many men in the villa to secretly admire her, unwilling to move their eyes away. Legs for fun. Just Wang Xiaoran's legs were enough to attract the eyes of many men. At this moment, Wang Xiaoran had a 7 hero sword forged by the villa on her waist. She stood high up on the stage. The hilt of this 7 hero sword was wrapped with a black protective belt. The edge of the sword was a unique tiger head, and the scabbard was a black scabbard with golden tiger patterns. The 7 hero villa was divided into 7 ranks. From top to bottom, they were tiger, deer, bear, ape, crane, toad, and snake. The highest rank was dragon. Only Li Fan and the 2 hall masters were qualified to wear it. For example, Wang Xiaoran's rank was tiger, the same rank as Xia Hu and the others. At this time, Li Fan was in seclusion. As the leader of the 7 hero swordsmen, Wang Xiaoran had the responsibility to protect the manor. When she saw that these foreign devils had come to cause trouble again, she, who had become much stronger, also felt a little confident. She immediately stood up and prepared to repel these foreign devils. 7 hero swordsmen. Get into formation, Wang Xiaoran shouted, and the 36 7 hero swordsmen shouted in unison. Yes. The sound was uniform and full of vitality. It reverberated in the manor and lingered for a long time. Even Adam and the others could not help but turn pale. Attack. As Wang Xiaoran spoke, she drew out the 7 gallant sword from her waist. With a clang, it was as if a silver dragon had flown out. The cloud-patterned sword's edge, which was made of special steel, immediately caused Adam to frown. Following that, all 36 swords were unsheathed in unison, as if they were one person. When the Leaning Sword Hall's hall master, Luo Shuowu, saw this scene, she couldn't help but feel a little envious. As expected of an army created by Li Fan. This kind of imposing manner, even their elite team, Yi Sword, did not have. After all, the soldiers of Yi Sword were all martial artists. It was impossible for them to train like soldiers. Each and every one of them were very arrogant. Long Fengyu, the alliance leader of Whistling West Wind, was extremely jealous. If his alliance had this kind of fighting strength, why would he need to live under someone else's roof and hide in this villa to preserve his strength? However, Long Fengyu only cared about his jealousy and forgot one point. Li Fan not only had strength, he also had a military background. This was the condition for the 7 gallant villa to be able to transcend the rules. With such a powerful fighting strength, how could the government be at ease? As the saying goes, how can one allow others to sleep beside one's bed? Even if it was General Ran, if he knew that Li Fan had this kind of armed force, he would probably have to restrain him. But now is a special time, so the stronger Li Fan is, the better. You guys want to rebel? When Section Chief Shu saw this scene, he could not help but tremble. He was just a government official, how could he have seen something like this? To think that you are a Chinese government official. Wang Xiaoran reprimanded him without any trace of politeness. Don't you know what it means to expel the Tartars and raise our prestige? You, this fellow, actually ran to become a slave of a foreign devil. You are truly regressing the more you live. You are spouting nonsense. Section Chief Shu's face turned red like a pig's liver. This is a friendship between countries. Fart friendship between countries. They are already at our doorstep and you are still daydreaming. Wang Xiaoran was very impolite as she pointed at Section Chief Shu and loudly said, I think this guy is a spy sent by the United States. I, the 7 Gallant Villas Master, Li Fan, is the Imperial Sword. I have the power to kill these officials who do not work and are living off of us. Come, take him down and hand him over to the Master to deal with. Yes. The 36 swords uniformly pointed at Section Chief Shu. Section Chief Shu was so scared that he fell to the ground. His crotch could not help but become wet. This 7 Gallant Villa is really going to rebel. Too impudent. Adam angrily rebuked, what kind of ghost swordsman are you? Are you trying to break the law? This is our own matter, what does it have to do with you? Yang Kai had already stabilized his breathing. When he heard this, he curled his lips. You have been the Pacific Police for too long, aren't you being too controlling? As China's most friendly ally, it is indeed time to discipline you traitors. Adam arrogantly said, our Gods of Dusk has already allied with many countries and has the highest law enforcement power. We have the right to interfere in the affairs of all countries. Right now, we suspect that your villa is hiding a nuclear weapon and must be carefully searched. Your mother's fart. In this kind of situation, as a security director, Huang Lei originally did not have the qualifications to speak. But when he heard Adam's words, he could not help but become angry and directly started cursing. Hiding a motherfucking nuclear weapon, why don't you say that our villa is hiding your mother's underwear? Let me tell you, your mother's underwear is on me, do you want me to take it off and return it to you? Xia Hua and the other girls heard this and their faces turned red as they could not help but curse. This Huang Lei is really shooting his mouth off. If these words were heard by other foreigners, they might be surprised. This Chinese actually maintained a friendship with their mother. But Adam was very familiar with China. When he heard this, he immediately knew that it was an insult. When he heard this, he immediately flew into a rage and his body exploded with energy. You're full of nonsense. Take down these terrorists for me. With his order, the elite soldiers of Gods of Dusk behind him immediately prepared to attack. The 7 gallant sword guards of the villa also raised their swords, ready to fight at any time. Chapter 1355. Although Adam had brought a lot of people with him, the Dusk of the Gods still had a large disparity in strength. The only people he could rely on were the 10 A-class warriors he had brought from America. These A-class warriors were equivalent to the Grandmasters of China. With them leading the charge, Adam could rest assured. As for the other warriors, they were all sent by other countries. They were also Adam's cannon fodder. There were about 100 of them in total. It was not a small force and was more than enough to flatten this villa. However, Adam did not expect that there were so many experts in the 7 Knights villa. Moreover, there were more than 30 golden-clothed sword guards. They had formed a strange sword formation and were able to fight against 10 enemies alone. They are all ants. Adam adjusted the energy in his body. He had decided to personally deal with these terrorists. The 7 nanonuclei in Adam's body started to revolve at high speed again. His body was surrounded by bluish-purple lightning. This was the power of the Zeus system. Zeus, the Lord of Lightning, the King of Gods. As Adam adjusted his energy, his body gradually left the ground and floated half a foot above the ground. The support of the lightning and the ionic energy allowed him to temporarily break free from gravity. This godlike feeling made Adam's confidence soar. The abilities of the Golden Empire had been completely cloned into the Dusk of the Gods. Technology allowed humans to become gods and defeat everything. Old Guan, let's deal with him together. At this time, Li Fan and Imperial concubine Ju were in seclusion. Therefore, the 2 strongest fighters in the 7 Knights villa were Guan Wenbao and Yang Kai. Chen Junhua was protecting the villa with some other disciples. The two protectors had decided to deal with Adam together. "Take this," Guan Wenbao shouted. At the same time, he summoned his flaming warhorse. He rode on it and swung his blade at Adam's head. Among the martial god true bodies, Guan Wenbao's martial god was the most similar to a level 3 martial god. However, because he was good at fighting on horseback, he gave up the martial god's strength and became a support. Adam sneered and shot out a bolt of lightning from his palm towards Guan Wenbao. Just as the lightning bolt was about to land on Guan Wenbao, Yang Kai, who was at the side, separated his hands. Behind Yang Kai, a sage-like old daoist appeared faintly. His hands separated into two parts, immediately causing the lightning to fall to the side. Adam frowned, but Guan Wenbao's blade had already brought along a wave of fire, instantly falling on Adam's head. Buzz, buzz, buzz. However, this unstoppable crescent blade was blocked by an invisible shield. At the edge of the blade, there were some tiny lightning arcs that bounced off. "Chumph, you think you can defeat me like this? Ignorant Chinese martial artist, I have obtained the power of the gods." As he spoke, Adam didn't move. Two bolts of bluish-purple lightning suddenly burst out from his back. The lightning condensed into a pair of wings, gently flapping behind him. Back then, when Li Fan was cultivating, because his dantian was full and the power in his body couldn't be used up, a circle of light formed behind him. As for this Adam, his power condensed into a physical form, forming a pair of lightning wings on his back. It was somewhat similar to the Blood Clan. Guan Wenbao wanted to pull back his crescent blade, but there was suddenly a powerful suction force on his blade. Adam's body seemed to have a magnet, firmly sucking in Guan Wenbao's crescent blade. "You want to leave? Hehe, leave your life behind first." As Adam spoke, he opened his mouth and spat out a bolt of lightning that bounced towards Guan Wenbao. Guan Wenbao frowned. At this moment, he couldn't even let go of the crescent blade even if he wanted to. The suction force of the lightning was still very strong, firmly sucking Guan Wenbao's hands to the hilt. However, he wasn't worried because there was still a fellow called Yang Kai. Yin-Yang diagram. Yang Kai used his unique Tai Chi power. The lightning bolt that Adam shot out was actually hit askew again. Damn it. Adam was a little unhappy. He had absolute strength, but now he was continuously suffering losses. What kind of power did that man have? Why was it so strange? Before Adam could figure it out, the old martial god behind Yang Kai had already swept his palm on Guan Wenbao's body. Adam's unique lightning power was actually dissolved in an instant. Guan Wenbao's body was also swept into the air, Mount Hua cleaving. However, the two of them were fighting in perfect coordination. Guan Wenbao's body was in the air. With the force of the fall, the large blade brought out flames. A simple and unadorned Mount Hua cleaving, but it set off shocking energy. Even Adam couldn't help but be shocked when he saw it. Fuck. These damned Huaxia people, why do they have so many strange attacking methods? Adam didn't want to face this move head-on. He flapped his wings and wanted to leave. However, the best battlefield support, Yang Kai, wouldn't let him go so easily. "Stay here." Yang Kai pressed his hands on the ground. Adam only felt that something was pulling his body, and he couldn't move even half a step. "Get out of my way." Adam was furious when he saw that Guan Wenbao's blade was about to reach him. He roared, and the 7 nanonuclei also revolved at high speed. A powerful force erupted from his body, and lightning struck everywhere, and actually sent Guan Wenbao and Yang Kai flying. The two of them rolled in the air, dispelling the lightning power, and landed on the ground. They re-evaluated Adam in front of them. This foreign devil was quite powerful. "You people really don't know the meaning of death." Adam's body floated slightly in the air, and the lightning wings on his back kept flapping. "I'm already a god. Your lives are like ants, and I can crush them to death with a pinch. However, I'm different from you. I represent justice, and I am the law. You terrorists, I will give you the most severe punishment. Punishment my ass." Yang Kai was furious. This stupid foreign devil really thought that he was someone important. He was just a half-step saint, and he had used dishonest methods to improve his strength. How could he compare to Li Fan, who had trained step by step? He was very unhappy to be suppressed by this kind of person. He and Guan Wenbao pounced again, and the two of them attacked left and right, trying to suppress Adam. However, Adam was indeed very powerful. He once again gained the upper hand against Yang Kai and Yang Kai. Lightning fall. 2 lightning bolts suddenly landed on Guan Wenbao and Yang Kai. With 2 cracking sounds, they fell to the ground, and black smoke rose from their bodies. Although they had divine skills to protect their bodies, the two of them still suffered some internal injuries. The two of you have performed well, but in the end, you are still useless Chinese martial artists. Adam sneered as he stretched out his hand and pressed it on their heads. I'll send you to hell now. Chapter 1356. Although a semisage only relied on external items to increase his strength, he was still able to completely defeat the 2 grandmasters, Guan Wenbao and Yang Kai. Both hands were placed on top of the 2 men's heads. As long as he activated the power of thunder and lightning, he would be able to turn their heads into charcoal. But at this moment, a man's voice came from the sky. If you want to touch my people, you have to ask for my opinion first. Adam raised his head, only to see a white jade-like palm. He did not have time to kill the 2 seriously injured Huaxia people. Almost subconsciously, he raised his hands and released a huge thunderbolt. The power of this thunderbolt was something that even Guan Wenbao and Yang Kai could not deal with together. Even an armored tank could be pierced by this thunderbolt. But that white jade-like palm easily tore apart his thunderbolt and once again appeared in front of him. Although Adam was a little surprised, he was not worried. After all, he still had the static magnetic field around him. Even a nuclear bomb would not be afraid of the static magnetic field. How could it be afraid of a palm? But things did not go as he wished. The static magnetic field that he had high hopes for was actually shattered by this palm like a piece of paper. She placed her palm on his chest and patted his body. Puff! Adam felt as if he was hit by a train. His body immediately flew out and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Along with his flying body, the blood splattered in the air. Bang! Adam's body smashed into the mountain wall behind him, creating a pit. A terrible pain struck him, causing his vision to turn black and his ears to buzz. Are you all right? Li Fan wore a white open collar long robe. His eyes were filled with concern. He reached out and pulled up the 2 brothers who had fought together with him. Then, a large amount of primordial qi poured into their bodies and healed their internal injuries. Taoist grandpa is fine. Yang Kai grinned. Just take it that I was bitten by a dog. Sect leader, you're out of seclusion? Guan Wenbao looked at Li Fan, who had an otherworldly temperament. His eyes were filled with admiration. Congratulations, sect leader, you've achieved great success. Fuck, you've reached the martial sage level? Li Fan laughed dryly. He felt extremely unnatural. He did not rely on his own strength to break through to the martial saint level, but with the help of Murong Ari. Although Xiao Chen's body had already reached the level of a half-sage, he still needed to concentrate on cultivating if he wanted to break through the 9th acupoint. That way, he would have to increase the density of his strength. When he was in seclusion, Li Fan tried to break through the 9th meridian point with 2 streams of energy. However, the energy was consumed too quickly. Soon, he had no energy left and failed to break through. Li Fan estimated that in order to break through this acupoint, with his terrifying cultivation speed, he would need to cultivate in seclusion for at least 3 years. But how could Liao Wushuang wait for 3 years? At this moment, Murong sent Chun'er away and sneaked into her own secluded room. He didn't know what method the little lass used to make Li Fan lose his sense of normality. He actually stripped the little lass naked and tasted the taste of honey peaches. While he was lost, Li Fan and Murong Ari lingered for 3 whole days. However, in these 3 days, Li Fan's strength improved by leaps and bounds. Thinking back to that day in the secluded room, Li Fan couldn't help but blush. Murong Ari lay in his arms after that and explained everything to him. This little lass had been secretly practicing the secret technique of the Medicine King Valley's yin sect and had refined her absolute yin body into a precious cauldron. If he could take her precious cauldron body, he would be able to obtain the strength of 10 dragons. That was the strength of a grandmaster. Li Fan hugged Murong Ari tightly. He couldn't help but feel a little sorry for her. This little demoness, who had followed him wholeheartedly all those years ago, had helped him at the last moment. Brother-in-law, hubby, if we become enemies in the future, I hope you can be merciful. Murong Ari didn't ask for anything else but this one condition. With the help of her precious cauldron, Li Fan finally succeeded in breaking the last seal and opened the 9th acupuncture point. This allowed him to truly enter the realm of martial saint. Half martial saint, martial saint. This was a difference of 50 dragons' strength. However, after entering the martial saint realm, Li Fan felt that the improvement in the realm was not just a difference of 50 dragons. The current Li Fan felt that his ears and eyes were sharp and his internal energy was abundant. He could absorb energy from heaven and earth with a single breath. In the past, he had to rely on elemental recovery pills to replenish his internal energy. However, the current Li Fan only needed to take a breath to absorb a large amount of internal energy from heaven and earth to enrich his dantian. The dantian was also different. Now, these two dantian were like a rotating nebula, full of energy and vitality. Next, Li Fan also took the opportunity to help Murong Ari. When the two of them were entangled, he also washed the little girl's bones and marrow. He used his vitality to help her open up all the meridians in her body. He directly raised the little girl who originally had no heart to practice martial arts and was only at the early stage of impeccable refinement to the peak of strength. The speed of creating an expert was even more ferocious than Imperial concubine Ju's transfer of strength. However, the method of creating it was special and not everyone could use it. Damn it! How could I lose? Adam's roar came into his ears, calling Li Fan's attention back. He took a closer look and saw that Adam was pulling his body out of the rock. That pair of angry blue eyes stared at him, as if he wanted to pull out his tendons and peel off his bones. How could a mere Huaxia person hurt me? The lightning wings behind Adam kept flapping, and his strength began to circulate to the extreme. Lightning fall. Adam struck down a lightning bolt, trying to turn this damned Huaxia martial artist in front of him into charcoal. However, Li Fan just casually stretched out his hand and smashed the falling lightning bolt. You call this lightning? Li Fan smiled. How can it compare to the power of nature's lightning? At most, it is only a man-made lightning. Ridiculous. My strength is already at the level of a god. Adam suppressed the shock in his heart and thought of the power of the Zeus system, and immediately became confident. This Zeus system allows me to have the strength of the god of creation in the Golden Empire. God of creation? At his peak, that guy was only a half-saint. Li Fan couldn't help but shake his head. How is he strong? Nonsense. I think you are courting death. This enemy was too strong. No matter what despicable methods he used, he must die today. Adam even suspected that Li Fan's body was implanted with the chip of the Dragon God number 1. Or, he was the Dragon God number 1 that Huaxia had secretly created, the most perfect artificial human. Huaxia actually had this kind of technology. Damn it, I must kill him and obtain his data. Chapter 1357. Adam would never believe that a Chinese martial artist like Li Fan was stronger than him. He must be the most advanced android secretly created by China. This was the only judgment in Adam's heart. Since he was an android, he had a way to deal with him. Adam became even more excited when he thought of this. He stretched out his hand, and a black nanonucleus suddenly tore open the space between his eyebrows and flew out of his head, blood spurting out. This nanonucleus was about the size of a peanut. It flew in front of Li Fan and started spinning. Ha ha ha, since you are an android, then I won't be polite with the power of the nuclear battery in your body. China's dragon chip was developed together with the United States. However, in order to deal with this Chinese dragon chip, the United States hid a trick. They created a system that could absorb the nuclear energy stored in the dragon chip as long as the nanonucleus was activated. This way, no matter how strong the Chinese dragon chip was, it would only benefit the United States in the end. With such a method that could completely counter China, the United States plan was very good. Adam also thought that he could absorb Li Fan's power and become stronger. However, what surprised Adam was that no matter how the nanonucleus rotated, not a single bit of nuclear energy was absorbed from Li Fan's body. In the past, Li Fan had a dragon chip on the back of his hand. However, after he reached the martial sage stage, it was refined by his huge internal force. Now, in Li Fan's body, the main dantian only had a vast amount of energy, and the second dantian was a thick amount of yin energy. How could it be absorbed by Adam? Are you done playing? Li Fan looked at Adam's shocked expression, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a smile. But it was this smile that made Adam's heart jump. He seemed to see the devil smiling at him. This is too scary. This Chinese man. No, he is not human. He must be a demon from hell. This is your power. Li Fan stretched out his thumb and index finger and pinched the nanonucleus. Stop. Adam turned pale with fright and hurriedly let the nanonucleus fly back. However, Li Fan's two fingers had already pinched the nanonucleus firmly. The power of Adam's nanocore was no weaker than a small bomb. He tried to break free from Li Fan's grasp by letting the nanocore's power explode. However, Li Fan easily crushed the nanonucleus. Adam immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and half knelt on the ground, looking at Li Fan in shock. The nanonucleus was as hard as diamond, but it was crushed by him. How was this possible? Adam could not believe his eyes at all. This was simply a nightmare. Dragon God number one's power is actually so strong, Adam muttered to himself. Sorry, I'm not Dragon God number one. Li Fan crossed his hands behind his back and stood in front of him. Remember, I am the Shongfang sword, the Villa Master of the Seven Heroes Villa, Li Fan. What the hell? Don't tell me even the power of a god won't work. Adam couldn't stop trembling, but Li Fan smiled. God's power. Stop dreaming. That's just a bit of brute force with the help of external objects. Even if you have the strength of a half-saint, you won't be able to defeat a martial fighter who also has the strength of a half-saint. You're just a kid waving a pistol around. Nonsense. I will definitely kill you. Get your data. The retina camera in Adam's eyes kept recording this scene, and the higher-ups of the US who were standing in front of the screen were all stunned. How is this possible? How can he have such power? Shongfang sword. How can he be so strong? This is not scientific. This is not scientific. The higher-ups were a little crazy. They were shocked by Li Fan's strength. Even the Zeus system can't do anything to him. A white-haired officer sat on a chair, leaning on a cane as he watched this scene on the screen. We are currently collecting his data. A researcher said, we are currently analyzing his power level. What is the level of our Zeus system? The officer asked. The Zeus system used on Adam gave him the power of 900 images. The researcher immediately said 900 images is comparable to a nuclear warhead. The officer's eyes were somewhat gratified. Back then, the god of creation of the Golden Empire only had the power of 1,000 images. We have created this Zeus system according to his genome, and it can already be considered a perfect replica. The Zeus system is our highest technological masterpiece. Everyone nodded. If it wasn't for the high cost, we could mass-produce the Zeus system and create countless powerful warriors. Dragon God number one will be our greatest threat. However, the military officer frowned. Those Huaxia's hawks actually secretly created such a thing. How despicable. Has this person's strength been measured? The officer asked. It has been measured. The researcher's body suddenly trembled, and his eyes were wide open, as if he couldn't believe what had happened. What's the matter? How many values? The officer asked. It should be 1,000. Maybe he has the genes of a true god of creation. No, not 1,000. Then how many? 5,800 images. Impossible. The officer directly stood up, and then sat back down weakly. How can it be so high? The machine can't be wrong, damn it. The officer was extremely shocked. This is impossible. How can there be such an exaggerated number? There must be something wrong with the machine. Retest. It's no good. Adam has already been defeated, and the opponent has also retracted his strength. Damn it, We must get his data, his genes. We already have his genes, but back then, his genes didn't have such a powerful energy value. The researcher trembled as he spoke. Then go and snatch his genes. No, snatch his entire body. The general roared. Yes. The military personnel immediately mobilized. General, what about Adam? He is already useless, we don't need trash. The general spoke. Yes. At the same time, Adam, who was far away, had already completely lost consciousness, and was lying on the ground like a pile of soft mud. You guys are rebelling. Seeing this scene, Section Chief Shu couldn't help but tremble. He didn't even dare to look at Li Fan's eyes. Rebelling? Li Fan laughed. I am an imperial sword, everything I do is to protect China. As for you guys, you only want to fill your own pockets, only wanting to live a happy life and eat the flesh and blood of the people of China. Nonsense. I am the Section Chief of XX Bureau. What can you do to me? No, you are just a piece of trash. Chapter 1358. With the help of the Eagle faction, Section Chief Shu had already been dismissed. However, Li Sen, who was above him, was very cunning. He had only shown up at the villa and left nothing behind. Moreover, he had the support of the Dove faction, so it was naturally impossible to touch him. But don't worry, those guys' good days are about to come to an end. When General Ran met with Li Fan, he brought him a piece of good news. As long as our dragon god number 1 is in the sky, those guys will have to obediently hand over their power. When that time comes, naturally, no one will be able to threaten us. Haha, it's a good thing that dragon god number 1 is in the sky. Li Fan was not too excited because of this. But when the time comes, when the power of the Dove faction is handed over, I'm afraid that I will also have to hand over the power of the Shongfang sword. Ahem, Major Li, what are you talking about? General Ran coughed twice. He sat in the reception room of the Seven Knights Villa and looked at the young man in luxurious clothes in front of him, feeling a little uneasy. Logically speaking, he was a general who held military power. How could he be afraid of a young man in his early 20s? However, this was the Shongfang sword of Huaxia. Not only did he possess terrifying power, but at this moment, his otherworldly realm also made General Ran a little shocked. In the past, when he was recruited, he was just a stubborn boy full of stubbornness. But now, he was a grandmaster who was on the same level as General Ran. His temperament was much calmer, and he knew how to hide things in the bottom of his heart, speaking 30%, 60%, 70%. That lukewarm sentence just now had already begun to play a game with him, the general. We are all brothers on the same front. Whether it is the martial arts world or the government, we are all part of Huaxia's 5,000 years of history. When the hares are dead, the hounds will be cooked. When the birds are dead, the bow will be put away. Li Fan picked up the teacup, looked at the heavy tea leaves in it, and said slowly, how long this front line can last is not up to you, and I'm afraid it's not up to me either. Major Li, I know your concerns. General Ran had already heard the hidden meaning in Li Fan's words. When Dragon God number 1 is in the sky, you will definitely be given the most credit. At that time, the higher-ups will probably promote you to senior colonel. Although he wasn't a general, it was still an extremely high military rank. As for your Seven Knights Mountain Villa, the government won't touch it either. Moreover, he would be granted a military status. Every sword guard of the manor can get the rank of private. What do you think? That's right. This way, I'll be helping the government. Li Fan took a sip of the new tea cultivated by the manor. The taste was slightly fishy, but after a long time, it had a slight fragrance. It was not bad. Brother, this is already very good. You're holding an elite force in your hands. General Ran reminded Li Fan, if you don't put them in the military, how can the people above you rest assured? This troop was originally used to protect the peace of Huaxia. Li Fan was not annoyed. He just calmly stated the facts. In the future, even if Dragon God number 1 were to be launched into space, it would only be able to defend the missiles of various countries. If a force like the Dusk of the Gods invades, my Seven Knights Mountain Villa will have to block it. The Western countries have the ambition of wolves. You, Li Fan, are also sincere. I naturally know that. General Ran sighed, but you just said that some things can't be decided by the two of us. Well, Brother Li, what is your plan? Just say it. Since they are in the military, then give them a salary. Li Fan said very honestly, everyone is protecting the safety of Huaxia. We can't do it for free, right? Alright, this villa of yours can be considered an independent regiment no matter how you look at it. Although we can't actually give you a regiment commander position, we still need to give you a corresponding monthly salary. Every sword guard of the manor will also be given a monthly subsidy according to the salary standard of the Special Combat Department. It will be 7,000 yuan per month, and there will be 5 insurances and 1 housing fund. What do you think? Not bad. Li Fan finally showed a bit of a smile. Although it's not very generous, I reluctantly agree on behalf of everyone. Reluctantly? How can this treatment be bad? After all, we have the strength. Besides, you haven't finished mentioning your conditions, right? Hehe, General Ran smiled somewhat shamelessly when his thoughts were seen through. When the time comes, the higher-ups will send a party secretary. Well, I knew it. The higher-ups would definitely not allow Li Fan to lead such a large armed force alone. His here. This name sounds so bad. The party secretary of the manor sounds worse than a village cadre. Haha, of course not. When the time comes, you can just give him the title of deputy manor lord. He also knows that people who play politics are very smart. As long as you don't do anything illegal, he won't go against you. No matter what, he is definitely a member of our Eagle faction. How can I let you suffer losses? Okay, then it's settled. Li Fan said in his heart that after everything was settled, he should go to the Li family island to enjoy his life. He was also a little tired of managing the affairs of the Jianghu. After fighting for the benefits for the 7 Chivalry Villa, he didn't need to worry too much about the rest. But at the moment, there was still one thing that he was worried about. General Ran, how's the investigation of the Martial Imperial Palace going? Don't mention it. According to the address you gave us, we checked several times, but we couldn't find where the terrorists went. For Huaxia, the Martial Imperial Palace could indeed be called a real terrorist. They wanted to overthrow the government and make history go backwards. It was really scary. Nearby. We've also searched nearby. There are no clues at all. Bang. The teacup in Li Fan's hand suddenly knocked. This purple sand teacup actually sank into the table, which made General Rant's heart jump. Good boy, his strength is actually getting higher and higher. He is indeed worthy of the title of the Imperial Sword. The Martial Imperial Palace is a bunch of gutless bandit. They snatched my people and actually hid them. No matter how good Li Fan's self-restraint was, he couldn't help but explode at this time. Liao Wushuang's whereabouts were still unknown. Tai Bai Jinxing kept saying that he was going to the Martial Imperial Palace to ask for her, but in the end, this bunch of dogs actually hid. What a joke! With this kind of courage, they dare to call themselves the Martial Imperial Palace? Brother Li, don't worry too much. Didn't you say that Liao Wushuang is Liao Ju's daughter? As the saying goes, even a tiger doesn't eat its cubs. She shouldn't be in danger for the time being. No matter how arrogant the Martial Imperial Palace is, it is still a civilian organization. Right now, there is still something important waiting for you to do. Dragon God number 1? Li Fan also calmed down and looked at General Ran. Tell me, when will it be launched, and what do you need me to do? Chapter 1359. Dragon God number 1 was about to be launched. This was a great thing for Huaxia. However, many people did not want this satellite to be launched. Not just foreign forces, but even some of Huaxia's own forces. For a moment, heroes from all sides harbored ulterior motives. Fang Ping Base, which was preparing to launch Dragon God number 1, was also experiencing undercurrents. Following General Rant's orders, Li Fan brought Guan Wenbao, Chun Wang Xiaoran, and the 12-7 gallant sword guards to Fang Ping Base. Fang Ping Base was surrounded by Fang Ping Town. The town was close to the military base, so the town had always been safe and peaceful. However, Things had not been so peaceful in the past few days. The number of outsiders in this town had suddenly increased. "Husband, we've arrived at Fangping town. Let's find a place to rest." Chana looked ahead and saw a stone tablet erected at the entrance of the town. The words Fangping town were carved in red paint. However, as time passed, the words had become blurred. Only the words Fangping could be vaguely seen. The town was no longer clear. "We've arrived at Fangping's territory." Li Fan breathed a sigh of relief. When he came out, he had the control chip of Dragon God number 1 with him. This thing had been left in the 7-gallant villa. It was a sore point for Li Fan. Now, he had personally escorted it all the way here. Although his strength was already at Martial Saint, there were still other Martial Saint powerhouses in this world. If they were to join forces to snatch it, he might not be able to protect himself. The more refined his martial arts skills were, the more insignificant Li Fan felt. Among the cultivation techniques Li Fan practiced was the 9 Truths Essential technique, which allowed him to sense the energy of heaven and earth. After breaking through to Martial Saint, Li Fan's understanding of heaven and earth had deepened. The energy of heaven and earth was incomparably abundant. Moreover, after he became a Martial Saint, he could always feel that there was a pair of eyes staring at him from the sky. The stare made Li Fan's hair stand on end. He had once asked the Dragon Lady if there was anyone stronger than a Martial Saint since ancient times. The Dragon Lady had lived for a long time. She knew many old stories and legends. However, even she shook her head. Martial Saints were the strongest existences. Be it humans or sacred beasts, this was a top-notch threshold. Li Fan thought about it. This was probably the law of heaven and earth. If a person's strength surpassed the Martial Saint level, wouldn't that mean that he would have the ability to fly in the sky and burrow into the ground? In that case, he really couldn't be called a human anymore. He should be a god. After breaking through to the saint level, Li Fan felt that his lifespan seemed to have increased significantly. According to the Dragon Lady, a normal person's lifespan would increase by 200 to 300 years when they reached the sage level. Furthermore, he had eaten a dragon before, so he should be able to live longer. But as for how long, he did not know. In short, for Li Fan, he was carrying a great treasure, so it was better to be careful. In particular, this treasure was related to the fate of Huaxia, so they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. "There's a restaurant up ahead. Everyone must be tired. Let's eat something before we continue." Li Fan saw that there was a restaurant in the town ahead. Since they were almost there, he might as well bring everyone to eat something. He could absorb energy, but the others still had to eat. It was around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and there weren't many people in the restaurant. There were 7 to 8 tables in a large tile-roofed house that was more than 40 square meters. Li Fan led a group of people and sat down. Li Fan, Guan Wenbao, Chun and Wang Xiaoran sat at one table. The remaining 12 sword guards were divided into 2 groups and sat at the 2 tables at the side. The restaurant only had some peasants' dishes. Li Fan casually ordered some to let everyone fill their stomachs. "The food here is too ordinary." Chuna frowned. "How can I let my husband eat this? We're outside, so we can just eat casually." Li Fan was very casual. Although Chuna's cooking is not as good as Chio's, it's still better than this. As Chuna spoke, she turned around and went to the kitchen. This restaurant was very casual. They added some money, and Chuna personally cooked, so the boss was happy to be free. Soon, Chuna made 4 meat dishes and 4 vegetable dishes, as well as a thick soup, and served it to Li Fan. "Sister Chuna's cooking is really good." After Wang Xiaoran tasted it, she was full of praise. "I can't do it. Chio's cooking is the best." Chuna shyly waved her hand. She was good at female workers, and the clothes that Li Fan was wearing were all personally sewn by her. "It's already very good. Master, you are too lucky." Wang Xiaoran looked at Li Fan. As a little foodie, she couldn't help but feel a little envious. In the villa, Chio'er was personally in charge of Li Fan's meals. When she thought about how Li Fan could eat such delicious food every day, how could she not be jealous? This pearl and jadeite 8 treasures soup is not bad. At this moment, a voice came from the side. Li Fan turned his head and saw a handsome youth walking over and sitting in front of him. This youth was wearing a white shirt, black trousers, and a pair of sports shoes that had been washed white. He was tall and slender. He held a long sword in his hand and placed it on the table. Furthermore, he sat opposite Li Fan. Guan Wenbao and the rest were originally very vigilant, but seeing this youth's appearance, they relaxed. Liu Zhu, why did you come here? Seeing Liu Zhu, Li Fan couldn't help but laugh. Join in the fun? Or are you here to help your master snatch something? Get lost. What are you talking about? Liu Zhu couldn't help but roll her eyes at Li Fan, causing Li Fan to be stunned for a moment. He was obviously a man, but he actually had this kind of amorous feeling. This brother is too effeminate. I must properly reform him. I must not let him walk on the path of no return like Yang Kai. I came to find you. Find me for what? I missed you, so I came to see you. Can't I? Liu Zhu looked at Li Fan with a hidden bitterness. Why, is it so hard to see Manor Lord Li now? Haha, what are you saying? We are brothers. If you want to see me, isn't it a matter of minutes? I'm not the only one who wants to see you. Liu Zhu took a bite of the food in front of Li Fan and her eyes immediately lit up. Delicious. Thank you. Chana smiled faintly. Not bad, Manor Lord Li. You even have such a pretty maid by your side. Intentionally or unintentionally, Liu Zhu's tone was filled with sarcasm or jealousy. She is not a maid, she is a sword attendant. Li Fan explained. That's different. Look at you acting like a young master now, but you have forgotten your brother's suffering. What suffering do you have? If you really can't live anymore, then come and seek shelter with me. Li Fan said, as long as you forsake the darkness for the light, the door of Seven Knights Villa will always be open for you. Forsake the darkness for the light. Our holy religion is not the darkness. Liu Zhu rolled her eyes again. In our eyes, you guys are the darkness. Yes, yes, yes. Even eating can't stop your mouth. My mouth is easy to stop, but those guys outside might not be the same. Chapter 1360. Liu Zhu says as she eats. It doesn't matter, they're all customers. Li Fan smiles and even gives Liu Zhu a piece of sweet and sour pork. Just as they are talking, the restaurant's door is suddenly pushed open and a group of people walks in. Li Fan looks up and sees the Imperial Guards. The one walking in front is none other than Jiang Feng. Behind him is Shui Wuxin and 6 Imperial Guards. It's a small world. Jiang Feng sits down at a nearby table and looks at Li Fan with a smile. Isn't that so? What a coincidence. Li Fan smiles faintly. Second brother Jiang and I really have a bit of fate. That's natural, our fate is not shallow. Jiang Feng also looks at Li Fan. If I don't see third brother every day, I feel like something is missing in my heart. Then I'm really sorry for troubling second brother to think about me. Li Fan cups his hands at Jiang Feng. I just don't know if second brother is thinking about me or the things on me. Third brother is treating me like an outsider. Jiang Feng chuckles. No matter what, we're all family. There are a lot of people who have ideas about you here. Just as his voice falls, the restaurant's door is pushed open again. This time, Murong Ying walks in with the gold and silver swords and 8 other swordsmen from Murong Villa. Murong Ying coils her long silver hair, seemingly to prove that she is married. She said that she will only be Li Fan's wife for life, and she has done it. She has light makeup on her face, but she is as beautiful as a fairy, a rare sight in the mortal world. She is wearing a black cheongsam with a red rose printed on it. Murong Ying practices martial arts all year round and has an excellent figure. The cheongsam shows off her perfect chest and buttocks. Her slender waist made her figure look like a devil. Shui Wuxin was already very beautiful before, but compared to Murong Ying, she lost her luster. As soon as the door was pushed open, Murong Ying's gaze immediately fell on Li Fan. She only glanced at Li Fan before looking away. Li Fan was startled by her gaze, but he quickly regained his composure. Murong Ying sat on the other side and casually ordered a few dishes. Li Fan didn't expect that the 3 most powerful companies in China would be in this small restaurant. However, Li Fan had expected Jiang Feng to come. But why did Murong Ying come? Li Fan did not understand. This dish is disgusting. Shui Wuxin tried a mouthful of the food and spat it out. This was the first time she had eaten something so disgusting. Was this even edible? Boss! Shui Wuxin scolded loudly. A village woman walked out and approached them. What's wrong? What's wrong? What dishes are they eating? Looking at the plain food in front of her, Shui Wuxin pointed at the dishes in front of Li Fan and asked, "Why are we eating different? This, of course it's different. Why, can't we afford it?" Shui Wuxin was very dissatisfied. "Give us the same." This is not. The lady boss wiped her sweat. They made it themselves. How about you come to the kitchen and make some? Pay. Shui Wuxin glared at her. "We make it ourselves. Why do we need you?" "I'm really sorry, really sorry." The lady boss kept apologizing. Shui Wuxin seemed to want to say something but was stopped by Jiang Feng. "All right, I'll just eat something casual." Jiang Feng waved his hand. His gaze fell on Murong Ying. "Junior sister, no matter what, we are all family. Why don't you come and drink a cup or two?" This farmer's restaurant didn't have anything else but some home-brewed medicinal wine. People with different principles can't make plans together. Murong Ying sat in front of her table and said coldly, "Junior sister has never had me in your heart. It seems like I can't drink this cup of wine." Jiang Feng was not angry, he just raised his wine cup and drank by himself. "Master." Wang Xiaoran's hand gently placed on the sword on her waist. "Do you want to drive them out?" With the 12-7 hero swordsman here, Wang Xiaoran had this confidence. "Forget it." Li Fan gently pressed her hand. "Everyone is just eating together, it's nothing." These three organizations all had official authorization at the moment. Even if he was worried, Li Fan couldn't fall out with them. Especially towards Murong Ying, Li Fan didn't know what to do. He could only sigh and continue to eat while maintaining vigilance, protecting his important belongings. It seemed like this launch plan might really be a little troublesome. The US Empire was determined to destroy him. Who knew what kind of trouble they would cause him? Snatching the Dragon God chip from his hands seemed a little difficult, but if they wanted to stop the satellite from going to the sky, it seemed like there was a way. He personally came to Fangping Town not only to escort a chip, but also to ensure the smooth launch of Dragon God number 1. Although the defense of the huge military base was tight. But for powerhouses with special abilities, there was still a chance to infiltrate. After eating, Li Fan and the others were about to get up and head to the base, but 6 guard-level powerhouses from the Royal Guards suddenly stood up and blocked the door. "What? Can't hold it in anymore and want to make a move?" Li Fan stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the 6 Royal Guards in front of him, and asked calmly, "What? Can't hold it in anymore?" "Hey, don't misunderstand, I have no intention of attacking the 7 Heroes Villa." Jiang Feng chuckled, "You're going to Fangping Base to do something big, so of course you should go. However, Mr. Liu can't. He's from the Devil Sect, a wanted criminal of the Royal Guards, so he can't go to Fangping Base. He's one of my people." Li Fan did not have any other strong points, but he loved to protect his own people. "If you stop him, you're naturally stopping me." "What, Villa Master Li, are you going to protect a disciple of the Devil Sect?" Shui Wuxin looked at Li Fan coldly, thinking to himself, this Li Fan really doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Relying on his status as an official, he actually protected a disciple of the Devil Sect. The pugilistic world and the Devil Sect were like fire and water. What he did was a little out of line. "I don't need you to judge my master's way of doing things." Wang Xiaoran glared at Shui Wuxin with her beautiful eyes. "If you talk nonsense again, I'll cut your tongue off." None of the disciples in the villa did not respect and love Li Fan. This was especially true for disciples like Wang Xiaoran, who had entered the villa early, who admired Li Fan even more. How dare these people speak to Master like this? It was really too rude. Master has a good temper, he doesn't want to lower himself to your level, but we're different. Whoever dares to disrespect Master, don't blame the 7 Heroes Villa for being merciless. All right, I'd like to see how merciless you can be, little girl. As she spoke, Shui Wuxin untied the long whip from her waist. Chapter 1361. Swoosh. Wang Xiaoran unsheathed her sword. Her 3 subduing dragon swords had reached perfection, and she needed a chance to test it out. Jiang Feng and Li Fan didn't stop her. Jiang Feng was still sitting there, while Li Fan took 2 steps back. At the same time, he waved his hand, and the tables and chairs around them slid off the ground, leaving a space in the middle. Murong Ying was still sitting there, eating her food, as if she didn't care about what was happening. The lady boss stood at the side, dumbfounded. 2 of the 7 hero swordsmen stood beside her, protecting her so that she wouldn't be affected. This is, don't worry, we'll pay for any damage to the store. Chana stepped forward and comforted the lady boss. Little girl, you've only practiced martial arts for a few years, but you're already so arrogant. Shui Wuxin held the whip in her hand. She was now a master, and she practiced the white bone whip technique, so she was naturally confident. Although Wang Xiaoran's aura was extraordinary, she didn't care. Humph, don't cry when you're at a disadvantage. Wang Xiaoran held the 7 heroes' sword in her hand and pointed it at Shui Wuxin. Both of them used their internal energy at the same time, and their auras spread out and collided. In comparison, Wang Xiaoran's aura was obviously weaker. But she didn't have the slightest fear, because she believed in the 3 subduing dragon swords that her master had taught her. Today, I'll teach you a lesson, you reckless girl. I'll let you know that there's always someone better than you out there. After saying that, Shui Wuxin suddenly swung her whip. White bone soul chasing. This was the white bone whip technique's fast opening whip. This was all about speed and accuracy. As soon as the whip left her hand, it was like chasing the soul and catching the shadow, impossible to guard against. In Wang Xiaoran's ears, there was only a bang, as if a firecracker had been lit in the air. Wang Xiaoran's body suddenly disappeared, and in the blink of an eye, she appeared on the right side. And a table not far behind her, as if it was cut by an invisible knife, was directly split into 2. Such a fast whip technique. Li Fan nodded, as if he couldn't help but praise. The best is yet to come. Shui Wuxin let out a cold snort, and then her body moved. The long whip in her hand left a black shadow behind it, and it actually coiled around Wang Xiaoran's body, leaving her with nowhere to escape. However, Wang Xiaoran's eyes narrowed slightly. She held the sword of 7 gallant swords, and her eyes emitted a faint blue glow. This was what Li Fan had taught her. It was a method to gather internal energy in her eyes. Wang Xiaoran instantly found Shui Wuxin's weak point amidst her numerous attacks. Azure Dragon Water Drop. Wang Xiaoran and the sword in her hand turned into a blur, and appeared in front of Shui Wuxin in a flash. Without waiting for Shui Wuxin to react, Wang Xiaoran's sword was already pointed at her fair neck. Wang Xiaoran had already gone easy on him. However, Shui Wuxin was somewhat unwilling. She had the strength of a grandmaster. How could she lose to a martial fighter who had reached the peak of perfection? This was illogical. Shui Wuxin suddenly stretched out 2 fingers and flicked away Wang Xiaoran's sword. At the same time, she swung the long whip in her right hand, and a white bone choke was aimed at Wang Xiaoran's throat. Dragon Choke Divine Weapon. However, the sword in Wang Xiaoran's hand twisted and then flicked. The long whip in Shui Wuxin's hand flew out of her hand and fell to the side. Shui Wuxin took 2 steps back, and her beautiful eyes were a little shocked as she looked at the wound between her thumb and index finger. She was actually injured. She, Shui Wuxin, was actually defeated by a little girl. Shui Wuxin took 2 steps back, and her face was full of disbelief. Jiang Feng gently stepped forward and held her shoulder. Winning and losing are common in a war. Just go back and practice hard. Jiang Feng's eyes lit up as he looked at Wang Xiaoran. This little girl seemed to be quite talented. It would be great if he could win her over to his side. It would be like adding wings to a tiger. Li Fan was quite lucky to have so many powerful generals under his command. Jiang Feng looked at Guan Wenbao, who was standing beside him, and felt a little jealous. Since you've lost, get out of the way. Li Fan asked Chun to leave some money and planned to continue to Fang Ping's base. However, at this moment, 6 Imperial guards pulled out their weapons and stared coldly at Li Fan and the others. Shameless devil sect. You must stay. The 6 of them said in unison. Get out of the way. Li Fan waved his hand, and the 6 of them flew out and crashed to the side. Saint level? Jiang Feng's eyes finally widened, and he looked at Li Fan with some shock. It had only been a few days, and Li Fan had actually broken through to Saint level. Jiang Feng secretly clenched his fists. Why, after sacrificing so much, was he still no match for Li Fan? What kind of dogshit luck did Li Fan have? Why was he able to surpass him again and again? Let's go. Li Fan retracted his hand and was ready to leave with Liu Zhu. However, at this time, Mu Rongying also waved her hand, and a table flew over, blocking the door. Are you going to stop me too? Li Fan turned around and looked at Mu Rongying. The people of the Devil Sect must stay. All along, Murong Villa and the Supremacy Sect had been enemies. What if I don't agree? Li Fan frowned. However, Mu Rongying said, Li Wei is a peerless devil who is bent on slaughtering the martial arts world. He is currently cultivating the Tongtian divine skill, and when he comes out of seclusion, he will definitely bring about a bloodbath in the martial arts world. Currently, he is cultivating the Tongtian Shengong. Once he finishes cultivating it, he will definitely bring a reign of terror to the martial world. You guys can look for him then. Li Wei is very cunning. No one knows where he is hiding except for the people of the Devil Sect. Mu Rongying pointed at Liu Zhu and continued, this person has a high status in the Devil Sect. If he is, he will definitely know where Li Wei is hiding. How would I know? I'm just an insignificant member of the sect. Liu Zhu pursed her lips and said fearlessly while holding onto her 4-elephant sword, you guys only know how to bully me. If you have what it takes, go and look for the leader yourself. What a glib tongue. Mu Rongying frowned and said, you can't go anywhere today. He's my sworn brother, I won't let anyone hurt him. Li Fan stood in front of Liu Zhu. Do you really want to protect the Devil Sect? Mu Rongying seemed a little unhappy. It has nothing to do with the Devil Sect. I believe him. Li Fan said without hesitation. So you don't believe me? Of course. I believe you too. Li Fan hesitated for a while and turned to look at Liu Zhu. Liu Zhu, do you know where Li Wei is hiding? Lord Sect Master is elusive. How could I possibly meet him? Liu Zhu rolled her eyes. What a load of nonsense. Mu Rongying reprimanded. You are. Before she could finish speaking, there was a loud noise from afar, followed by the ground shaking slightly. Everyone's expression changed. Did something happen to the base? Chapter 1362. Eve was America's last genetic weapon. Just like Adam, she was equipped with the latest Zeus system. However, in terms of performance, Eve's power was stronger than Adam's. That was because Adam only had 7 nanonuclei implanted in him, while she had 9. She tied her blonde hair behind her and wore a black Special Forces combat suit. The tight-fitting suit accentuated her figure. The 5 people behind her could not help but stare at the female officer's perky buttocks, exclaiming that she was a stunner. The group sneaked into the vicinity of Fang Ping's base. Although they only had 6 people on their side, the entire Ragnarok had sent out a lot of soldiers. Japan, India, England, a total of more than 10 countries, big and small, had all sent their most elite agents, ready to nip the Dragon God No. 1 launch plan in the bud. Fang Ping's base had entered a level 1 state of alert. There were patrolling soldiers everywhere. Normal agents would not be able to sneak in at all. However, it was not difficult for Eve. Her ability was different from Adam's. Adam had obtained the power of thunder and lightning, a destructive weapon of mass destruction. Eve's ability, on the other hand, was more unpredictable and tactical. The people of Gods of Dusk were waiting for her to make a move. Eve looked at the dense patrolling soldiers, placed her hands on her temples, and activated her powerful mentality. A minute later, all the soldiers in Fang Ping's base had fallen asleep. This was Eve's ability, Dream Entry. She could make everyone fall asleep. Without her command, no one would be able to wake up. With this ability, no one was a match for Eve. She was the absolute ruler. Just as Eve was about to make her move, an Indian yogi could not wait any longer. As if he wanted to snatch the dragon god number 1, he jumped over the barbed wire and into the base. Boom! Amid the earth-shattering tremors, red flames swallowed the yogi's body like a demon that had escaped from hell. Idiot! Eve could not help but curse. Fang Ping's base was now a tiger's den. Although everyone was asleep, they could not just casually enter. Fortunately, her nightmare ability was extremely strong. Even under such circumstances, she could still make those people stay in their dreams. Decipher the minefield. After Eve gave the order, a hacker walked out from behind her and immediately used a computer to unlock the password for the nearby minefields. After about 3 minutes, the minefield was successfully unlocked, and the mines lost their protective abilities. It's done, let's go in. With a wave of Eve's hand, at least 100 people swarmed into Fang Ping's base from all directions. Dragon God number 1's rocket was in the silo. No matter what, they had to stop this thing from launching. All of them wanted to be the first to obtain information on the Dragon God number 1. Everyone knew that whoever obtained the information would become a true superpower. Even if they were an alliance, it was impossible for them to be of one mind at this time. Quick, the satellite is just ahead. The information is ours. No, it's ours. They hadn't gotten their hands on the items yet, but the group was already preparing to divide the spoils. It was as if Fang Ping's base was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered to them. However, right at this moment, a gust of wind rose from the ground, directly sending the surrounding people flying. Everyone steadied their footsteps and raised their heads to see a man standing on the flagpole in front of them. He had delicate features and a gentle expression. He wore a white button-down gown and white canvas shoes, standing on the tall flagpole with the posture of a rooster standing on one leg. Seeing this person, Eve frowned slightly. She had this person's information. It was said that he was a monster with close to 6,000 energy points. When Adam was carrying out the mission that day, he had been defeated by him. If she could bring him back, then she would have completed a big mission. In the general's mind, Li Fan's mission rank was the same as Dragon God number 1's. Who would have thought that a Huaxianese could receive such treatment? The 100 or so people looked at Li Fan in unison, as if they knew that he was not someone to be trifled with. How many people did not know the name of Huaxia's imperial sword? Especially when there were 3 groups of people below him. Although there were not many of them, they did not look like they should be trifled with. Lady Eve, we're counting on you. The backbone of the group was America's Eve. She had a terrifying ability and should be able to subdue these Huaxianese guardians. Incubus. Eve nodded. There was no time to lose. She immediately activated her ability and prepared to take down these ignorant Huaxianese. However, at this moment, a wave of psychic energy suddenly spread out from Li Fan's body and directly impacted her ability. The two forces cancelled each other out, and Eve's ability failed. Oh no! Eve's face darkened. Without the power of Incubus, she could not make these Huaxianese guardians fall into a deep sleep. I didn't expect this imperial sword to know psychic energy. A British knight of the Round Table snorted coldly when he sensed this power. If that's the case, then let us, the Knights of the Round Table, trample you to the ground. He waved his hand, and 6 knights walked out from behind him. Each of them was clad in iron armor and wielded a long spear. Mechanical bionic beast. Under the leadership of their leader, the 6 knights uniformly took down a metal box from their backs, threw it on the ground, and kicked it open. The metal box immediately began to transform, and the metal on it constantly disintegrated and reassembled. Soon, 7 steel warhorses appeared beside them. Li Fan's eyes lit up. Good lord, there was actually such technology. Mechanical bionic beasts. How magical. These steel warhorses were lively and mighty. They would probably increase the combat power of these knights by quite a bit. Everyone has it. The Knights of the Round Table raised their large swords and shouted, in the name of the knights, charge! Charge! The 7 knights charged towards Li Fan together. The Knights of the Round Table held their large swords in front, and the 6 knights followed behind with their spears raised. The warhorses galloped, and thick smoke billowed. Royal Guards. Jiang Feng seemed to be here to help this time. He immediately ordered 6 sergeants to block the knights. 6 peak experts who had used their chips to increase their strength displayed their respective abilities. Using their lightness skills, they attacked the knights. However, these peak experts were like mantises trying to stop a chariot. In a single exchange, they were all sent flying. Eve's lips curled up in a smile. The might of the British Knights of the Round Table was not for show. Once they galloped, they were unstoppable. Chapter 1363. The Knights of the Round Table were also very confident in their combat prowess. As long as they were on their war horses, no one would be able to stop them. If these foolish Huaxia people wanted to defeat them, they should have done so before they got on their horses. Get into formation. 3. Li Fan was not worried at all. He stood there calmly. Wang Xiaoran raised the long sword in her hand and gave the order in her pleasant voice. The Knight of the Round Table did not care about the opponent's attacks at all. He only waited for his spears to tear the bodies of these Huaxia people to shred. But at this moment, the 12 sword guardians of the 7 heroes attacked together. Azure Dragon Point of Water. 3 formations. The sword guardians of the 7 heroes formed a team of 3. Each team was responsible for assassinating a knight. In the air, 3 figures flashed past a knight at the same time. Each of them performed the Azure Dragon Point of Water. One stabbed the throat, one stabbed the horse's head, and the last stabbed the horse's leg. Pu. Clang. The throat was slit, and the sound of steel being cut could be heard. In the blink of an eye, 4 steel war horses rolled to the ground, and the knight on them was crushed to death. Continue. Wang Xiaoran did not care. She continued to give the order, and the remaining 2 knights were directly killed. Only the Knight of the Round Table was left. He relied on his thick armor to block the wave of attacks. But he was fine. The war horse he was riding on was still destroyed. The Knight of the Round Table rolled to the ground, holding his long sword. He was shocked and angry as he looked at the 12 sword guardians of the 7 heroes standing around him. Get into formation. 12. Wang Xiaoran's expression was as cold as frost. She pointed her long sword at the Knight of the Round Table. Shield of Victory. The Knight of the Round Table subconsciously felt a sense of fear. Without hesitation, he immediately circulated the energy in his body and condensed a golden shield to protect his body. But at this moment, the 12 sword guardians of the 7 heroes stood beside him and threw out the swords in their hands at the same time. 12. White Tiger. The 12 of them pressed down with their fingers. Immediately, 12 swords fell from the sky and slashed at the Knight of the Round Table. Bang, bang, bang. The falling swords were invincible. They tore through the golden shield and the thick armor, directly nailing the Knight of the Round Table to the ground. This was the power of the 4 emblems sword formation. Looking at the Knights of the Round Table lying in a pool of blood, Eve was speechless for a long time. These Huaxia people, what kind of technique did they use to actually kill a pair of knights just like that? Simply inconceivable. Huaxia. Huaxia. I really underestimated you. Through the video feed, the general saw this scene and frowned deeply. Li Fan, the 7 Knights Villa. They really were the #1 enemy of the Great American Empire. As long as they eliminated them, no one in Huaxia would be able to stop them. This sword formation is so powerful. Even Shui Wuxin could not help but feel astonished after seeing this. Her eyes were filled with astonishment, which she could not withdraw for a long time. With this formation, the 7 Chivalry Mountain Villas' battle prowess would greatly increase. Perhaps, in the entire Jianghu, there wouldn't be a single sect that could defeat the 7 Chivalry Mountain Villa. Jiang Feng's eyes also flashed with a hint of fanaticism. If he were to learn this sword formation, it would definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. Everyone, attack together. Eve knew that just 1 or 2 teams would not be able to take down this place. As soon as she gave the order, everyone from the Gods of Dusk immediately surrounded Li Fan and the others from all directions. 12 White Tigers. Under Wang Xiaoran's command, the 12 sword guards calmly controlled the sword formation together. For a moment, the sky was filled with a rain of swords. Although the 12 sword guards were not as strong as the 4 sword servants, they had more people. The white tiger sword formation that the 12 sword guards used together caused the sky to fill with a rain of swords. For a moment, the soldiers of the gods of dusk screamed miserably. These soldiers of the gods of dusk were also elites, and each of them was a dragon among men, but here, before they could even display their combat power, they were slaughtered like chickens and dogs. Eve was a little annoyed, but she could not save these people. She could not do anything because Li Fan was still standing there, waiting for her. As long as the Seven Knights Villa is here, don't even think about attacking Huaxia. Li Fan arrogantly said, I'll give you 30 seconds to get the hell out of here. Otherwise, I'll kill you without mercy. When it came to invaders, Li Fan would always kill them no matter how far away they were. If these people did not know how to repent, then Li Fan did not mind sacrificing them to his ancestors. Li Fan, I know you're very powerful, but don't be too arrogant, Eve said as she stretched out her right hand and aimed it at Li Fan, who was on top of the flagpole from a distance of dozens of meters. A huge force compressed over, Li Fan's feet bounced, and he lightly floated down from above. The flagpole that he was standing on had already been crushed into a pile of scrap metal. Tempage, go to hell. Eve had a huge amount of mental power. She pointed her finger, and the 2 tanks around her flew up and attacked Li Fan in the air. Bang! However, Li Fan stretched out his hands and forcibly stopped the 2 tanks that were squeezing over. Eve sucked in a breath of cold air. This man, is he a monster? Your mental power is too weak, it's not even worth mentioning, Li Fan said as he swung his hand. A tank immediately came crashing down, and Eve hurriedly stretched out her hands to block in front of her. Clang! This tank was blocked by her mental power shield. If it weren't for her powerful mental power, she would have most likely been squashed into meat paste. Li Fan raised the other tank with both hands and jumped onto the tank below before landing heavily on it. Bang! Eve's knees buckled, and blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. This man is too terrifying. I can't deal with his strength at all. Even with 9 nanonuclei, my energy is still inferior to his. It looks like his energy value is close to 6,000. But he's clearly a human, so why does he have such terrifying energy? Could it be that he really is the most powerful cyborg in Huaxia? But how could the technological prowess of Huaxia surpass that of the United States? It was the dragon god number 1, and now it was Li Fan. All of this was too strange. Eve was a little angry, but at this moment, aside from herself, no one could fight against Li Fan. Even the Imperial Guards, who were close to the Americans, stood by the side and did not do anything. They obviously had no intention of helping. Cunning Huaxia people. Eve couldn't care less about her companions anymore. She could only sacrifice them. Dong. Her mental power shield finally shattered. Eve's body suddenly turned into a puff of white smoke and instantly disappeared. Her 4 companions weren't so lucky, and they were immediately squashed into meat paste. Chapter 1364. Eve slid back several dozen meters in the blink of an eye before landing in the distance. Her forehead was drenched in sweat, and she was panting heavily as she looked at Li Fan, who was standing in front of her. You sure run fast. Li Fan stepped on the tank and threw it to the side. It's a pity about your companions. What's there to pity about? They can't complete the mission, so there's no point in keeping them. Eve thought of a way to escape as she spoke. Now that things had come to this, trying to steal Dragon God number 1 from under Li Fan's protection was no different from a fool's dream. The experts she brought were also stopped by the 12 sword guards of the 7 Chivalry Villa. Just 12 of them had such powerful combat power. Although they had already destroyed the martial arts world of China, the 7 Chivalry Villa still guarded the gates of China. Li Fan, this man deserved to die. But he was so powerful that even she was no match for him. How could a normal person do anything to him? Mission failed. Unable to complete, Eve sighed into the walkie-talkie as if she wanted to give up. No. This mission is of utmost importance. The general rejected Eve's request to retreat. No matter the price, we must take back Dragon God number 1. If we can't take it back, then destroy it. It was extremely difficult to build the Dragon God number 1. Over the years, China had expended a lot of effort and money to build this satellite. As long as they could destroy it, they could guarantee that China would not be able to build another Dragon God satellite within a year or two. This period of time was enough for America to think of a way to deal with Dragon God number 1. Therefore, dealing with Dragon God number 1 was the most important thing. I request the Zeus suit. Eve thought for a long time and finally decided to use America's ultimate weapon. Approved. The general did not hesitate. He sat there and looked at Li Fan on the screen as he slammed his crutches on the ground. At this time, one of America's satellites lit up in the sky. China's application of nanotechnology on Dragon God number 1 was indeed a pioneering work. Once Dragon God number 1 was in the sky, it could completely block foreign detection signals and automatically intercept foreign missiles. It could also remotely locate and attack satellites. These abilities could be said to be the true guardian of China, and they could make China invincible in the world. However, the United States had launched a satellite a long time ago and named it King of Gods. King of Pantheon's main purpose was to gather intelligence information from various countries. Furthermore, it was equipped with the most advanced Zeus armament project, which could arm combatants with Zeus nanocore with long-range combat capabilities. Once equipped, this combatant would possess the power of a nuclear warhead. Therefore, even the United States did not dare to be careless. Because if the other party wanted to commit treason, the higher-ups would not have the ability to control them. But right now, it was time to release this nuclear weapon. Zeus set teleportation countdown. The woman's report sounded in Eve's ears, and she couldn't help but feel a little excited. It was also her first time using this invincible Zeus suit system. She wondered what it would feel like. With the set, even the so-called Shongfang sword would have to obediently admit defeat. In the distant space, the satellite had locked onto Eve's body. Then, a powerful beam of light shone down on Eve. Li Fan frowned as he looked at this scene. He could vaguely sense that something was wrong from the strong light. The people around him also noticed this scene. The people of Gods of Dusk all had tears streaming down their faces. Great, Eve had finally unleashed her ultimate move. This way, it would definitely be foolproof. Everyone, retreat. When Li Fan saw the sword guards trying to approach Eve, he immediately shouted to stop them. There was some kind of powerful pressure on Eve, so it was best not to approach her for the time being. Li Fan's caution made sense. Other than Eve, who had been implanted with nanonuclei, anyone else who tried to touch the light would be instantly burned to ashes by the strong light. This was the power of humans. The power of unparalleled technology could flatten everything. Li Fan did not panic. He stood on the tank with his hands behind his back, waiting to see what Eve had up her sleeve. Soon, the strong light slowly dissipated, and Eve's appearance had changed. She was wearing a set of dark blue battle armor. This battle armor was built according to ergonomics. It fit the body and was easy to move around, but it was also built with nanocore, which gave it super strong defensive capabilities. Even if he stood in the blast of a nuclear bomb, he would still be able to survive. Furthermore, she was holding a bluish-purple spear in her right hand. The tip of the spear was in the shape of a bolt of lightning, as if it was ready to split open the sky at any moment. There was a nanocore embedded in the spear, which was faintly intertwined with lightning. Li Fan, are you going to admit defeat? Eve pointed the spear at Li Fan and yelled. Why would I admit defeat? Li Fan had a smile on his face, as if he didn't care about Eve at all. Stupid Huaxia person, this is the Zeus suit. As she spoke, Eve flicked her long golden hair, as if she wanted to establish her dominance, and aimed the spear directly at Li Fan. A bolt of lightning crashed down and struck the tank. Boom! The main battle tank was reduced to charcoal, and it was engulfed in flames. Li Fan instantly retreated over 10 meters and stood on the roof of a nearby building with furrowed brows as he looked up at the sky. The lightning didn't originate from the spear. Instead, it came from a satellite above his head. This satellite could change weather and emit the power of lightning. Even though it wasn't as powerful as a nuclear bomb, it was still not to be underestimated. A main battle tank was instantly reduced to charcoal. If it were a normal person, they would have most likely been electrocuted in an instant. Hey, did you see that? Eve looked at Li Fan with a domineering expression. This is the power of the Zeus suit. It can summon lightning. That's quite interesting. Li Fan said, but what's the point if it can't hit anyone? I know you're fast, so I can't hit you. A smug smile appeared on Eve's face as she pointed her spear at the nearby silo. I just have to destroy that thing. Li Fan secretly cursed. This golden-haired girl actually didn't play by the rules. Eve commanded with her spear, and a bolt of lightning descended from the sky, striking the silo in the distance. Spring wave. Li Fan pointed with his finger, and the spring wave sword on Chun-Er's back flew out. This treasured sword spun extremely quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it had flown above the silo. Catcher. A bolt of lightning struck the spring wave sword, but it was absorbed by the sword that was enveloped in vital energy. Then, like a lightning rod, it was deflected to the side. Chapter 1365. The United States had given Eve the Zeus suit in order to destroy Dragon God Number 1. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky, but Li Fan suddenly had an idea. He shot out his treasured sword and used it as a lightning rod, diverting it to the side. The crisis of Dragon God Number 1 being destroyed was temporarily averted. However, Li Fan couldn't give Eve any space to continue attacking. The lightning was extremely fast, and it was already very difficult for him to block it once. Who could guarantee that he could block it a second time? I heard that in your Huaxia legends, there are immortals who can control immortal lightning and unleash the five-blow thunderstruck technique. Eve chuckled and asked Li Fan, look at me. Don't I look like one of those immortals from your legends? Look like your sister. Li Fan harumphed coldly as he pointed at Eve again. The spring wave sword immediately turned into a beautiful streak of light and instantly appeared in front of Eve. Don't look down on me. Eve's spiritual power spread out, and a ripple that could be seen with the naked eye exploded from her forehead, turning into a circle that spread out in all directions. Meanwhile, the spring wave sword that Li Fan was controlling stopped in front of Eve's forehead, buzzing and trembling, as if it had been blocked by an invisible wall. This Eve was most likely a natural psychic ability user, and with the help of the genetic chip and the Zeus suit, she was actually able to use her spiritual power to lock down Li Fan's treasured sword. She's indeed quite powerful. Li Fan's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. With such powerful spiritual power, she would be a very powerful opponent. There was always someone better out there, and this Eve couldn't be underestimated either. Since you're not willing to admit defeat, I'll use my lightning to send you to hell. As Eve spoke, she suddenly glared at Li Fan. The powerful spiritual power was like a shackle, locking down Li Fan's body. Even someone as powerful as Li Fan was locked down by this powerful spiritual power and was unable to escape. Meanwhile, a bolt of lightning had already struck down from the sky, heading straight for Li Fan's head. Although Li Fan could not move, he could still circulate his power freely. Doppelganger, White Emperor supporting the heavens, 100% power. A figure flew out from Li Fan's body. This external incarnation raised its palms and displayed the palm of the five emperors. The incarnation's palms faced the sky and heavily collided with the descending lightning. Bang! This lightning bolt could even penetrate a tank. If Li Fan were to use his body to block it, he would definitely die. However, he was very smart and used his avatar to block this attack. Thunder and lightning were formed from energy, and his avatar was also formed from energy. As the two types of energy collided, Li Fan's avatar was reduced to ashes. However, the lightning was also blocked, protecting Li Fan. What? Eve was clearly astonished. How was this possible? Her attack had been blocked. She knew better than anyone how powerful the lightning was. This Li Fan really did have some tricks up his sleeves. This was too strange. What was that identical doppelganger? Was it a doppelganger warrior created by genes? She remembered that there was a person in the Twilight of the Gods who also had this ability. However, the doppelganger he created was not even a tenth of the original's strength. It could only serve as a distraction and was useless in a real fight. It seemed that this Li Fan's doppelganger was probably also used to block attacks. Now that he had lost his doppelganger, Li Fan no longer had anything to rely on to protect his life. He was no longer a match for her. Li Fan, you have a death wish. It's not up to me to decide, Eve said as she prepared to summon another bolt of lightning to strike Li Fan to death. He had been hit by her psychic shackles. With the enhancement of the Zeus equipment set, she should be able to trap him for 2 minutes. These 2 minutes were enough. She would summon a few more lightning bolts and completely defeat this arrogant Huaxia youth. As long as she defeated him, no one here would be able to stop her. When that time came, destroying the dragon god number 1 would be as easy as turning over her hand. Perhaps she would even have a chance to capture this brat and bring him back to complete her mission. Eve couldn't help but feel envious at the thought of Li Fan's value. Come forth, Zeus wrath. Eve was prepared to summon an even more terrifying bolt of lightning to completely destroy Li Fan. However, right at this moment, Li Fan's doppelganger suddenly appeared in front of Eve. However, Eve didn't care about this guy at all. Why would Eve care about a minion with no combat ability? Right at this moment, the doppelganger suddenly raised a palm and slapped it toward her. Doppelganger, Yellow Emperor rides the dragon, 100% power. This was the starting move of the 5 Emperor's divine palms and the fastest technique, Yellow Emperor rides the dragon. The palm tore through the air and instantly appeared in front of Eve. Stop it. Eve finally sensed that something was wrong. She hurriedly raised her spear and formed a blue lightning shield in front of her in an attempt to block the doppelganger's palm. It was just a doppelganger, so how much power could it possibly have? It would most likely be shattered by the power of the shield. Crack. However, the doppelganger was unscathed. Instead, a palm print half a foot deep appeared on Eve's shield. Immediately afterward, the shield shattered like glass, and the doppelganger's palm landed on Eve's body. Eve's body immediately slid back over 10 meters. If it weren't for the fact that she was wearing battle armor, she would have most likely been slapped to death by this palm. Even so, white smoke was still rising from Eve's shoulder. It was clear that this palm strike had not been light on her. How could this be? Eve was a little astonished. This was just a doppelganger, but it still possessed such power. Little did she know that even a doppelganger of Li Fan's possessed the power of a half-sage. Although it couldn't defeat a sage, if a doppelganger of a half-sage were to suddenly launch a sneak attack while he was battling a sage, the effect would be indescribable. In a regular battle, Li Fan would not use his doppelganger. However, in a battle of life and death, he would not hesitate. Bastard! Before Eve had a chance to attack, Li Fan had already withdrawn his doppelgangers and was making his way toward her. Your name is Eve, right? I'm sorry, but you're not welcome here. Leave your life here. Saying this, Li Fan placed his palm on Eve's chest. Mystical Dragon Ice Palm, Icebound Kingdom, full power. A giant ice dragon appeared in the air and penetrated Eve's body. After achieving the sacred realm, Li Fan was able to unleash the power of a third-layer martial god. Each of his attacks was able to gather his chi and transform into different forms, thus the effect was a lot better than Murong Ying's materialization. Murong Ying's materialization allowed her inner force to feel extremely real, as if it was an actual object. Meanwhile, Li Fan's third-layer martial god realm was able to produce a stronger force, allowing him to kill his opponent. Thunderous roar. Although Eve let out a roar, she did not have time to react. Her figure and the ground within 10 meters of her were frozen into ice sculptures. Chapter 1366. The warriors of Dusk of the Gods who were still fighting were stunned. Was the mighty Eve going to be defeated just like that? What should they do? Although Li Fan's palm didn't freeze 10,000 miles, it did freeze a radius of 10 meters. This was also a powerful skill. How could an ordinary person achieve this? Of course, they didn't know that Li Fan had already shown mercy. Otherwise, with his skill, he wouldn't be able to freeze everything within 10,000 miles, but he could easily freeze everything within a radius of 100 meters. The reason why he didn't use this technique was that he had indeed shown mercy. Secondly, the 7 hero swordsmen were still within 100 meters, and Li Fan was afraid of hurting them. However, he was able to control the ice seal to a range of 10 meters, which was also a powerful strength control technique. With such power, it is indeed the supreme sword of Huaxia. The general couldn't help but exclaim in admiration when he saw this scene through the camera. It was a pity that such powerful combat power didn't belong to the Empire. Otherwise, it would only be a matter of time before the Empire took over the world. Since they couldn't get it, they had to destroy it. They couldn't let it fall into the hands of other countries. Wake up, Eve. Unleash your greatest power and serve the Empire. The general gave the order, and the eyes of the frozen Eve suddenly lit up. Although she had already fainted, the general had used remote control to temporarily take control of her body. At this moment, Eve had truly become a killing machine. Under the general's command, she used her mind power to tear through the ice that sealed her body. Then, she pointed the lightning spear in her hand at Li Fan again. Crack! A bolt of lightning fell from the sky and landed directly on Li Fan. This time, the lightning was faster and more ferocious. However, Li Fan was prepared. The spring wave sword rose into the air and floated above Li Fan's head, attracting the lightning to avoid the disaster. The lightning landed on Li Fan's palm. Black Dragon Ice Palm, Dragon engulfs all things, 100% power. Li Fan used his dragon engulfing all things to forcibly absorb this powerful thunderbolt into the palm of his right hand for a while. What? The general was shocked when he saw this scene through the screen. He couldn't believe his eyes. This Huaxia kid actually used his palm to absorb the power of the heavenly thunder. The might of thunder and lightning. This was an extremely powerful energy. According to known technology, humans had not yet invented an object that could withstand the power of thunder and lightning. At most, he would use a lightning rod to attract the lightning and direct it into the ground. Even though Eve could only summon a small portion of the power of the lightning with the help of the Zeus satellite, the tank just now was proof that the power of the heavens could not be violated. This Huaxia man in front of him actually used his bare hands to block Lei Wei's attack? How could this be? Under the general's shocked gaze, Li Fan had already unleashed his second move. Thunder Dragon Heavenly Punishment, Thunder Lightning Blade, Thunder Might. Thunder Dragon Heavenly Punishment was originally a technique of the Thunder Lightning Blade. Li Fan had divided it into 3 moves, attacking the upper, middle, and lower parts of the body. However, at this moment, with the powerful might of thunder in his hand, Li Fan could not afford to use his moves. He simply waved his hand and slashed out like a saber. Whoosh! The purplish-blue lightning saber pierced through the air and the ground, reaching Eve in the blink of an eye. Block it! The general unleashed Eve's psychic power to create a psychic barrier in front of her. Bam! The lightning saber slammed into the mental barrier and its forward momentum slowed down slightly. The general was overjoyed. As expected, the weapons of his empire were the most powerful. Even the might of thunder could be blocked. With the power of the Zeus suit, Eve was able to block the lightning saber for the time being. However, Li Fan still had a trump card up his sleeve. With a wave of his right hand, vital energy condensed in the air. Another Li Fan immediately materialized in the air and descended from the sky, smashing his palm down on Eve's head. Avatar, Azure the Arch-Sea Calming, 100% power. With a resounding boom, Eve's mental barrier was shattered. Even the general could not help but be shocked by this scene. Little did he know that this Azure the Arch-Sea Calming technique was the best technique to break through a person's defense. The spiritual power barrier was broken, and the lightning saber continued onward, slicing off one of Eve's arms with brute force before hurtling through the air. The thunder lightning saber then split the tower behind it into 2, cutting it into 2. Holy shit! So powerful. This is Huaxia's Shongfang sword? We can't beat him. What do we do? The warriors of Gods of Dusk saw this. How could they possibly defeat an expert like Li Fan? This person's strength was terrifying. Could they even deal with an expert like this? I vow to complete this mission with my life. The intense pain brought Eve back to her senses. She looked down at her severed arm. She was smart enough to understand what had happened. It seemed that she had lost consciousness because the general was controlling her. However, the result was obvious. She had still been defeated by Li Fan and had lost an arm. If she could survive, she did not care about losing an arm. Their empire had terrifying technology. Even if she lost an arm, she could still reattach it. But if she lost her life here, she would lose everything. Eve wanted to ask for a retreat, but she heard the general's rebuke. I vow to complete this mission with my life. Am I really going to lose my life here? Li Fan was like the guardian of Huaxia. As long as he stood there, no one would be able to touch the enormous dragon god number 1. If that's the case, Eve's eyes shone with an intimidating light. Even Li Fan could not help but feel a little apprehensive. What was this woman trying to do? Zeus' wrath. Blue lightning began to emit from Eve's body. Then, dark clouds began to gather in the sky. These dark clouds were thick and dark, giving Li Fan the feeling that they were about to destroy a city. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Eve, this woman. Could it be, not good? Li Fan furrowed his brows. He had to kill Eve immediately. She was definitely trying to attract the terrifying heavenly lightning here. If the true might of the heavens descended, both Eve and the dragon god number 1 would perish together. Li Fan might have a way to survive, but he would not be able to protect Wang Xiaoran and the others. Dragon subduing sword, Azure dragon point of water, 130% power. Li Fan waved his hand. The spring wave sword transformed into a black dragon and instantly pierced through Eve's body. Splat. Azure dragon point of water was the fastest technique in the dragon subduing sword. It was similar to the yellow emperor rides the dragon from the 5 emperors' divine palms. In the blink of an eye, a bloody hole had appeared in Eve's body. The general stood in front of the camera. He did not even get a clear look at the attack before the news of Eve's death appeared on the screen. However, a smile appeared on the general's face. Chapter 1367. It did not matter even if Eve was dead. She was still in control of her own body. The terrifying heavenly lightning was about to descend. Li Fan could see that even though Eve was dead, she was still summoning the terrifying lightning. Don't underestimate the Huaxia hero. Li Fan snorted. Then, he jumped up and slammed his palm down on Eve, who was summoning the lightning. Black dragon ice palm overturning the skies and stirring the seas, 130%. Li Fan didn't show any mercy when he attacked this time. He had unleashed the full power of a martial saint. A white ice dragon descended from the sky and slammed into Eve's body. Eve did not even have time to struggle before she was smashed into smithereens by the powerful gust of wind. Such a shocking strength finally made everyone shut their mouths. The screen in front of the general turned black. Then, he could not see anything. His control over Eve had been completely severed. What's going on? The general roared, but it was too late. Quick, re-establish contact with Eve. The general roared again and again, as if he was extremely angry. General, we still have a plan B, an officer beside him reminded him. Yes. We still have a plan B. The general's expression softened at the thought. As long as there was a plan B, Dragon God number 1 could still be destroyed. No one could stop the United States Empire from becoming stronger. That's right, no one could stop it. At this moment, in the base, the people of Gods of Dusk had all surrendered, raising their hands in surrender. Could they not surrender? The terrifying Huaxia demon god, Li Fan, was standing right there. Who dared to disobey him? Husband, they're all under control. There's no room for error. Chana reported to Li Fan. At this time, all the enemies were under control. The guards of the base had also been awakened. They reoccupied the base and were preparing to launch Dragon God number 1. The rocket was about to be launched, but for some reason, Li Fan had a bad feeling. Chana had said that there was no room for error here, but he had practiced martial arts for many years. This kind of instinct had never lied to him. Something's not right. Looking at the rocket that was slowly ejecting flames and beginning to take off, Li Fan suddenly felt that something was wrong. Chana, tell me, If I'm from America and I'm facing a terrifying enemy, what do you think I'll do? I think, it must be that, right? Chana also seemed to sense something. She raised her head in surprise and looked at the dragon god number 1 that had already flown into the sky. Not good. Li Fan also frowned. His knees bent slightly, and his whole body suddenly bounced up. He used the dragon soaring through the 9 heavens several times, and his feet stepped on the void. With this force, he continued to rise into the air and soon caught up to the rocket that had not yet flown far. With a flick of his hand, Li Fan activated the dragon capturing hand. With the help of the dragon catcher hand's suction force, he was pulled onto the rocket. At this moment, Li Fan's aura instantly enveloped the entire rocket. He finally found an invisible guy. Dragon subduing sword, azure dragon drops water. Li Fan stretched out his hand and pointed. The sword chi shot out and hit it. Bang! A palm-sized spider robot was directly sent flying by Li Fan's sword chi. It fell into the air and exploded. This huge explosion almost affected the rocket that had risen even higher. Fortunately, the rocket had already begun to accelerate and was able to shake off this explosion. Li Fan used one hand to suck in the rocket. He carefully examined it and only relaxed when he found that there were no more abnormalities. However, when he looked down, he realized that he had flown at least a few thousand meters into the sky. At this distance, even if he had divine protection, it would be difficult for him to save his life. Li Fan had also performed high-altitude jumps in the sky before, but the height at that time was not this high. However, what kind of person was Li Fan? He was a saint-tier expert. He let go of the rocket and his body fell down. However, at the same time, Li Fan took off his jacket in the air and unfolded it. He had infused his jacket with powerful inner force to ensure that it would not be torn apart by the airflow. Both of his arms were tightly pulling on the jacket. Li Fan felt as if he was holding onto a wild horse that was about to escape. It was very difficult for him to control this jacket. However, Li Fan still floated down bit by bit. Like a god descending to the mortal world, he slowly landed on the ground. What a good Huaxia's guardian. Seeing this scene, Jiang Feng could not help but raise his head and use his hands to form a small tent. While blocking the sunlight, he praised, with this kind of strength, even if that old man Murong were to be revived, he would not be able to do it. Traitor. Murong Ying squeezed out a sentence from her mouth, if you talk about my father again, you will leave your life here. Junior sister, you are still so overbearing. Jiang Feng clasped his hands behind his back and chuckled, if you can be a little gentler, the two of you would have already traveled the pugilistic world hand in hand, like a celestial couple. It is a pity that with such an ending, the two of you would end up parting ways. What? Are you here to talk about me again? Murong Ying laughed coldly. A cold light flashed in her eyes. Since you like to talk so much, why don't you abandon Wukongwen? It is also a way out. Jiang Feng seemed to seriously consider for a moment before nodding his head, however, that will have to be after the entire pugilistic world is overturned. Especially your Murong family. As long as this family is not eliminated, my heart will not be able to calm down. HMPH. Murong Ying seemed to be too lazy to talk to Jiang Feng anymore. With a wave of her sleeves, she no longer bothered with him. Jiang Feng did not pester her and continued to look at the sky. It was as if he was looking forward to Li Fan's return. Murong Ying was exceptionally intelligent. She seemed to have already guessed that something was wrong. Her eyebrows slightly knitted together. Even though she was frowning, it did not reduce her beauty in the slightest. Li Fan had already lightly landed on the ground. At this moment, Dragon God number 1 was finally launched into space. It left the rocket and entered a fixed orbit. Huaxia was filled with cheers. The entire country was in jubilation. With this Dragon God number 1, from now on, Huaxia would no longer need to look at America's face, but the happiest person was Jiang Feng. He could not even suppress the ecstasy in his heart. He laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Li Fan was a little shocked. He looked at Jiang Feng. Are you crazy? Li Fan, do you think I would be so kind as to help you? Jiang Feng finally revealed his final trump card. Secretary Li has already seen through your plot. We are more skillful. We have already tampered with Dragon God Number 1. Saying that, he stretched out his hand and pointed to the sky. Let me show you the true power of Dragon God Number 1. Li Fan and Murong Ying looked at each other. They could see the unease in each other's eyes. Chapter 1368. The Dragon God Number 1 was sent into space and quietly floated in its predetermined orbit. As the Huaxia Guardian of Space, it had its own great mission. When a ray of sunlight shone on it from afar, the hexagonal satellite began to slowly change shape. Segment after segment of its steel body was dragged out of the hexagonal satellite and extended outwards. Soon, a total of 7 segments extended from the steel body. The first segment had a head, the second and sixth segments had claws, and the last segment had a tail. Its back was made of molten gold, which was used to absorb sunlight as energy. There were 2 types of energy drives installed on the body of the Dragon God Number 1. One was the small nuclear fission device at the core of the Dragon God Number 1, and the other was the solar drive on the back. Under normal circumstances, the Dragon God Number 1 only needed to absorb energy from the sun to maintain its daily operations. Every 10 years, it would fly back to land from space to be upgraded and maintained. When it entered combat mode, it was far from enough to just absorb the energy from the sun. At this time, it needed to use the nuclear fission device in its body to provide powerful energy to the Huaxia Dragon God, turning it from a guardian to a true war machine. But at this moment, this guardian had received a summon. Only then did it transform from its satellite form to its dragon god form, preparing to unleash a thunderous fury. Murong Ying was also here to protect the Dragon God Number 1. Because Li Fan had done a good job, she could not be bothered to do anything. But now, the situation did not look good. Jiang Feng's reliance seemed to have finally arrived. Could it be that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? If that was the case, Jiang Feng's intelligence was a little too terrifying. Sigh. She could not help but sigh softly. From the first time she met Jiang Feng, she did not like him. Although he was trying his best to please her, Murong Ying was extremely intelligent and could see through his hypocrisy at a glance. Staying at Murong's house, he must also have some ulterior motive. Now that she thought about it, this person was really ambitious. In the distant space, the Dragon God satellite spat out a golden light that shone directly on Jiang Feng's body. Jiang Feng's body began to transform. The dragon chip in his body slowly moved, and in the end, it actually swam to his forehead and broke open between his eyebrows, revealing a red crystal imprint. This reminded Li Fan of the androids from the past, the chosen ones. The United States had used the Zeus system to enhance Eve, and it appeared that Jiang Feng and the Dove faction were also planning to do the same. They wanted to use Dragon God Number 1 to strengthen the dragon chip in Jiang Feng's body so that he could break through in one go and reach the state of a supreme god. The golden light was so intense that even Li Fan didn't dare to touch it. Murong Ying, your Murong Villa and Li Fan's 7 Knights Villa will all be destroyed by me. Jiang Feng laughed heartily as he accepted the baptism of the dragon god's power. Under the enhancement of Dragon God Number 1, the dragon chip in Jiang Feng's body was utilized to the extreme. The clothes on his upper body were shredded, and several nano chips grew out of his hands, shoulders, and legs. On his back, 2 pairs of chips grew out. These 2 pairs of chips slowly extended and actually turned into 2 pairs of blood-red crystal wings. So this is power. Jiang Feng's face was full of joy as he felt his own strength. Yes, this is the power. I will use this power to destroy you all. You're really something. Li Fan looked at the strengthened Jiang Feng and said softly, you actually used Dragon God Number 1 and me. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Jiang Feng sneered, those ignorant barbarians think they can use me, Jiang Feng. In their dreams, I will be the one laughing in the end. As long as I destroy you all, Secretary Li will grant me riches and honor. At that time, I will take my sister and live a happy life. As for you people, you will be buried by me and history. The Chinese martial world will cease to exist. I've really underestimated you. Li Fan cupped his hands, expressing his admiration. Your ability to endure has far exceeded my expectations. I should have known that with your character, you wouldn't run over to help me for nothing. Obediently admit your failure, Li Fan. The golden light slowly dissipated. Jiang Feng's body had already expanded to a height of 2 meters. 2 pairs of red crystal wings flapped on his back, making him look majestic and imposing. Even the 12-7 hero swordsmen didn't dare to act rashly. They could already feel a terrifying pressure coming from Jiang Feng's body. Under this pressure, they couldn't even move, let alone draw their swords to fight him. Saint rank. Li Fan and Mu Rongying looked at each other again. They didn't expect that Jiang Feng would rely on Dragon God No. 1's help to forcefully raise his strength from a quasi-saint to a saint rank in an instant. This kind of rapid evolution was not something an ordinary person's body could withstand. But Jiang Feng's body had already been strengthened by the dragon chips several times, so he was able to withstand this power. Enough with the nonsense. Mu Rongying had always been straightforward. She scared off the disciples of the villa, then pointed 2 fingers at Jiang Feng and unleashed a sharp sword aura. Mu Rongying was already proficient in turning illusions into reality. Now that she had reached the 3rd-level martial god realm, she was like a tiger that had grown wings. The sword aura she unleashed turned into hundreds of swords in the air and shot toward Jiang Feng. Heh. Child's play. Jiang Feng's current strength was incredible, so he didn't care about the sword aura at all. He crossed his arms and stood there, allowing the sword aura to hit his body. Clang clang clang. The sword aura was repelled by the invisible protective chi around his body, unable to hurt him at all. Do you need help? Li Fan stood at the side with his hands behind his back and asked with a smile. That's an unnecessary question. Mu Rongying harumphed coldly. She suddenly reached out her hand and grabbed 2 swords out of thin air. Following this, she traveled a distance of over 10 meters and arrived in front of Jiang Feng as if she had shattered the void. When Mu Rongying was only 16 years old, she had become unrivaled with the Murong dual swords technique that she had invented herself. Since then, she had never used the Murong dual swords technique. Today, in the battle against Jiang Feng, she had used her trump card, which surprised Li Fan a little. It seemed like Jiang Feng's threat level had reached a certain level, so much so that even Mu Rongying had to take him seriously. Mu Rongying brandished the 2 swords in a beautiful manner. She slashed continuously at Jiang Feng with both swords. However, Jiang Feng just stood there and continued to unleash Shura sword aura technique with his fingers, repelling Mu Rongying's swords with brute force. Junior sister, look, you're no longer a match for me. Chapter 1369. What kind of person was Mu Rongying? She was proud and arrogant. How could she allow herself to be taken advantage of like this? Junior sister, the first time you used Murong's dual swords, you used me as a sparring partner. Jiang Feng's lips curled into a smile. No one knows your swordplay better than I do. You want to use it to defeat me? How is that possible? As he said that, Jiang Feng aimed at an opening and flicked his Shura sword aura, which flew past Mu Rongying's neck. A shallow wound was immediately left on Mu Rongying's fair neck. I created the Shura divine swords with all my heart and soul. How can your swordplay compare to it? Jiang Feng taunted Mu Rongying as he fought. Manor Lord, we're here to help you. As Mu Rongying's bodyguards, the gold and silver swords finally could not stand it anymore. They jumped out and wielded their long swords at the same time. They turned into 2 streaks of golden and silver light and shot toward Jiang Feng. Stop! Mu Rongying frowned, but Jiang Feng sneered. He flicked his fingers and 2 crimson Shura sword auras flew out, shattering the 2 long swords. In the blink of an eye, blood appeared on the gold and silver swords' throats. The 2 of them did not even see each other's attacks clearly before they died. Damn it! Mu Rongying's pretty face was covered in frost. The gold and silver swords had followed her for a long time and were loyal to her. Now that they had died for no reason in Fang Ping's base, how could she not be angry? You can't blame me. Jiang Feng shrugged. They're just too weak. They're like ants. I could kill them with a flick of my finger. If that's the case, I'll kill your subordinates too. When Murong Ying's temper flared up, she was also a female devil. She faced the royal guards in the distance and opened her palm. In an instant, 7 swords suddenly fell from the sky, piercing the bodies of the royal guards and nailing them to the ground. Shui Wuxin almost died under the swords, but she was a grandmaster-level expert. Shui Wuxin used the long whip in her hand to block the falling swords and rolled to the side. Up to you. Jiang Feng didn't care. They've already lost their value. You can kill them if you want. My lord, Shui Wuxin's body shuddered when he heard this, as if he couldn't react in time. Wuxin, it's been hard on you for so long. Jiang Feng looked at Shui Wuxin and gently said, You've helped me so much, the only way I can repay you is to kill you with my own hands, okay? Why? Shui Wuxin was incomparably shocked. Am I not your loyal subordinate? What, you're not willing to die for me? This subordinate is willing to die for you at any time. Shui Wuxin let out a long sigh and knelt down in front of Jiang Feng, lowering her head as if she was waiting for his punishment. Very good. Jiang Feng nodded. Other than my sister, no other woman can affect my feelings. Shui Wuxin, you've helped me a lot, so killing you with my own hands can be considered a worthy death. Please. Sir, please make a move. Shui Wuxin's body slightly trembled, and even his voice was trembling. To be able to die in his hands seems not bad, at least. I have an explanation. Right, very good. Jiang Feng was very satisfied. He was now the strongest. There was no need to rely on others. Die for me. Jiang Feng waved his hand and an Azura sect sword chi flew straight at Shui Wuxin. His sword chi was as fast as lightning, reaching Shui Wuxin in the blink of an eye. Shui Wuxin steeled her heart, closed her eyes, and waited for death. But at this time, a figure appeared in front of her, and at the same time, slapped away the sword chi. Bang! The sword chi pierced through a building next to it and went out. Shui Wuxin was a little surprised. Looking at Li Fan who was blocking in front of her, she couldn't understand. Why did he want to protect her? Interesting. Jiang Feng said without turning his head as he fought with Murong Ying, I didn't expect you to be so nosy. Yes. Li Fan was full of smiles. If you're not convinced, then bite me. Li Fan, don't be complacent for too long. After I kill Murong Ying, it'll be your turn. You go. Li Fan helped Shui Wuxin up from the ground and said to her, Don't meddle in this muddy water anymore. I'm already a useless person, why save me? Nonsense. Li Fan's eyes widened. Why do you need to rely on Jiang Feng to realize your value? Shui Wuxin was a little confused. All along, she had been living for Jiang Feng. Now that she lost this goal, she really didn't know what to do. Idiot woman. Go away and cool off. Li Fan couldn't stand Shui Wuxin's character. How could she live without Jiang Feng? Go, here, kill yourself. Li Fan casually threw a long sword to Shui Wuxin. Don't disturb our work. Shui Wuxin hugged the long sword, speechless. This man, why doesn't he have any tender feelings for the fairer sex? Would it kill him to persuade me a few more words? Junior sister. Admit defeat. However, on the battlefield, Jiang Feng actually suppressed Murong Ying, causing Murong Ying to be in a disadvantageous position. Murong Ying, how about I go? Li Fan advised, your kung fu is not good enough. Humph. Murong Ying was very unhappy. Jiang Feng and Li Fan, these two guys, actually surpassed her and even created a very powerful kung fu. She would not admit defeat. After all, she was fully deserving of the title of Wulin's chancellor. Who said that a man must be stronger than a woman? She, Murong Ying, could also defeat these two men. Ice flame sword technique. She suddenly took a step back, distancing herself from Jiang Feng. Then, Murong Ying let out a long breath. Her two swords suddenly changed. The long sword in her left hand turned red, as if it was burning with a raging flame. The scorching power caused the surrounding air to distort. And the long sword in her right hand condensed into a bluish-white color. A dense cold air spread out, forming a layer of faint frost on the ground. Murong Ying originally cultivated the flame palm, and later on, Li Fan had instilled cold elemental energy into her body. Therefore, her body could simultaneously display two types of fire and ice elemental internal energy. This was similar to the Chilean palm that Li Fan had created all those years ago. However, Murong Ying opened up a new path and actually used this method on her sword technique. With her dual sword technique, she created a set of ice flame sword technique. Raging Prairie Fire, Ice Country, 130% power. Murong Ying raised her two swords, bringing along two completely opposite sword chi, directly towards Jiang Feng. Not good. Even Jiang Feng, under these two sword chi, couldn't help but change his expression. With his strength, he wouldn't be able to block this move. What a powerful Murong Ying, she actually had this kind of talent. Bang! The internal energy under his feet exploded, and his whole body instantly shot up tens of meters into the sky. Chapter 1370. Who said that women were inferior to men? Who said that only men had the right to inherit? In Murong Ying's heart, she hated this kind of saying the most. Li Fan and Jiang Feng had created their own kung fu, why couldn't she, Murong Ying? Prairie Fire, Country of Ice, 130% power. Murong Ying wielded two swords in her left and right hand, executing two different sword techniques, and threw them at Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng was a little surprised. These two sword techniques had different attributes, and each had several ways of attacking, but Murong Ying seemed to have different brain controls for her left and right hand, and she easily executed two different sword techniques at the same time. Jiang Feng could block one move, but he couldn't block the other. A person's thinking has a habit. You can use both hands at the same time, but you can only execute the same movement. But if you want your left hand to draw a square, and your right hand to draw a circle at the same time, then it would be very difficult. This was like the mutual left and right hand fighting in Jin Yong's novels. Once mastered, using both hands to execute different moves, the power was really amazing. Jiang Feng's vigor chi was enough to deal with ordinary experts, but in front of a martial sage like Murong Ying, it was like a piece of paper. If he allowed Murong Ying's sword technique to hit him, it would not be a joke. Azura's wrath. Jiang Feng's body expanded a lot, and his body was wrapped in a layer of black light. But this black light quickly began to change, and in a short while, the black light faded into white light. An even more powerful aura immediately spread out. Li Fan understood. Jiang Feng's black azura aura had probably been cultivated to the peak, and had turned into the final stage of white azura. Sure enough, the current Jiang Feng's body was white, and his whole body was like a white tiger man, roaring at Murong Ying. After azura transformation, Jiang Feng's strength actually increased a little. He actually passed through the gap between Murong Ying's attack, and appeared in front of Murong Ying. Then, with an azura star picking, he directly stabbed at Murong Ying's heart. After transforming into an azura, Jiang Feng's speed was too fast. Even though Murong Ying was already a martial saint, she still couldn't keep up. However, Murong Ying was an outstanding saint-level martial fighter after all. She reacted subconsciously and struck out with her two swords, instantly blocking Jiang Feng's palm. If Jiang Feng insisted on tearing open Murong Ying's heart, then his palm and throat would not be spared. Murong Ying's swordplay was focused on attacking vital points. At this moment, there were two swords. One was aimed at the tendons on Jiang Feng's wrist, and the other was aimed at his throat. No matter how long Jiang Feng's arm was, could it be longer than a sword? Jiang Feng stopped his body in the air in time. At the same time, he slid back more than 10 meters. What do you think? Murong Ying also landed on the ground with one foot on the ground and the other in the air. Her snow-white thighs were extremely alluring. She held her sword with both hands, her eyes filled with arrogance as she stared at Jiang Feng in the distance. Do you admit defeat? With this set of ice flame swordplay, Jiang Feng, who was much stronger than her, was forced to retreat step by step. Murong Ying was indeed Murong Ying. Li Fan, who was watching the show, wanted to clap his hands, but he thought about his current status and held back. Once a person had a status, they couldn't live too freely. The hatred between the Jiang family and Murong's family was almost irreconcilable. Murong's family caused the death of Jiang Feng's father and caused the destruction of their family. And Murong Bo, that old dog, had indirectly died in Jiang Feng's hands. This kind of blood feud was probably unresolvable. The only way to solve this problem was for one of the families to be completely wiped out, to be uprooted. However, the two of them were similar in strength. Jiang Feng's strength was slightly higher, while Murong Ying's combat skills were stronger. There was no way to determine the winner in a short period of time. In order to determine the winner, the two of them would have to fight for at least 3 days and 3 nights. Moreover, even if they fought for 3 days and 3 nights, they might not be able to kill each other. Therefore, at this moment, Li Fan's significance was extremely important. Third brother, the hatred between you and Murong's family isn't light either. Why don't you help me? I can make the decision not to touch your 7 Nights villa. When that time comes, you just have to move the 7 Nights villa to the island. How about it? Jiang Feng also knew about the Li family island. As he fought with Murong Ying, he made a condition to Li Fan. Even if the two of us come together, so what? Murong Ying was unmoved. There was no expression on her beautiful face. Look at this arrogant woman, don't tell me you like her. Jiang Feng continued to persuade Li Fan. Stop dreaming, Li Fan. She's not yours. No matter how well you treat her, she won't be with you. This woman never knows what kindness is. She's a demon that belongs to Murong's family. She's just a sharp sword for Murong. You love her, but she'll kill you. Jiang Feng's words kept wandering in Li Fan's ears, causing Li Fan to be a little annoyed. This guy is really too noisy. Li Fan looked at Murong Ying. She didn't say a word. Her pride also didn't allow her to say anything. To her, there was only battle. Continue to battle. Let's talk about everything with martial arts. The only answer to the two men was the sound of swords piercing through the air. Whoosh, whoosh. The two swords used different moves, one left and one right, one up and one down. They went straight for Jiang Feng. Murong Ying didn't have the slightest bit of mercy. She seemed to want to use her sword to cut off all feelings. See that? That's her. This woman doesn't love you at all. You should give up on her. With your strength, it won't be a problem for you to find as many women as you want. Jiang Feng's words made Li Fan think for a while. That's right. As long as Murong Villa existed, Murong Ying would never return to his side. If he wanted this woman to come over without any burden and with a clear conscience, he must make Murong Villa disappear. However, if he was the one who eliminated Murong Villa, Murong Ying would probably hate him for the rest of her life. In that case, even if she didn't take revenge on him, she would never be willing to face him again. She might find a place to hide and never see him again for the rest of her life. Therefore, Murong Villa must be eliminated. Moreover, he had to use other people's hands to eliminate it. In summary, Jiang Feng couldn't die for the time being. His hatred for Murong Villa might be able to divert the trouble and drive the tiger to chase the wolf. However, Jiang Feng was a very cunning person. If he wanted to use him, he might be used by him instead. At this moment, Li Fan's brain was working at full speed, thinking of a way to deal with it. Conquering Murong Ying was also a big task that he had to solve. As for Jiang Feng, he was only a martial sage. Li Fan didn't mind having another martial sage opponent. He had been through a lot of ups and downs. When had he ever been afraid? Thinking of this, Li Fan suddenly laughed. How about I join the battle of the best? Chapter 1371. Li Fan finally made his move. Jiang Feng's and Murong Ying's combined combat strength is almost the same. Right now, Li Fan's interference broke the balance between the two of them, forming a three-way stalemate. Although Jiang Feng is a demon-like character, Li Fan still wants to try and make use of him. This is like a risky investment, where benefits and risks coexist. Only those who are bold and meticulous can benefit from it. Li Fan is not a schemer, nor is he a ruthless person, but he wants to make a big gamble at this moment. Good third brother, are you here to help me? It is unknown if Jiang Feng's expression is happy or shocked as he asks with a beaming smile. No, no, no. I just saw an expert and am a bit itchy, so I want to spar. I hope you can give me a chance. Li Fan laughs heartily as he waves his hand and slaps Jiang Feng's wrist. Jiang Feng's tiger claw originally clawed at Murong Ying, but now it is forcefully repelled. Third brother? Murong Ying raises her sword, but Li Fan raises his leg and kicks her sword away. What are you doing? Murong Ying glares at Li Fan, but Li Fan shrugs his shoulders. I already said I am itchy. Murong Ying's left hand stabs at Li Fan's left rib with an ice snow sword. Azura star seizing. And Jiang Feng also clawed at Li Fan's chest. Li Fan reaches out his hand and activates Dragon Capturing Hand. The spring wave sword is sucked into his palm, and he raises it up, blocking Murong Ying's sword. At the same time, his left hand slaps away Jiang Feng's fierce palm with Black Dragon Ice Palm. Don't interfere. Murong Ying seems to be a bit angry. This Li Fan, he doesn't even look at the opportunity to mess things up. Since you want to fight, then I will leave. Murong Ying wanted to leave. However, at that moment, Li Fan waved his hand, and a stream of sword chi swept out in front of Murong Ying's feet, slicing out a crack in the ground. Wife, the victor hasn't been decided yet. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? I'm not playing either. Jiang Feng knew that there was no way to determine who was stronger. With his personality, he naturally wanted to find a place to cultivate properly before looking for an opportunity to kill Li Fan. However, Li Fan had no intention of letting him go. His avatar appeared and used the Yellow Emperor rides the dragon to force Jiang Feng back. The two of them had no choice but to fight with Li Fan again. Li Fan was also a top martial sage. He actually managed to fight to a draw with the other two martial sages with his exquisite moves and the ability of his avatar. Li Fan was establishing his might. He wanted to let the two of them know that he didn't put them in his eyes with his martial strength. Murong Ying was fine. She probably wouldn't come to provoke him in the future. However, Jiang Feng was an ambitious person. He would definitely think of a way to defeat him. However, he couldn't ally with Murong's family. Therefore, his only way was to completely destroy Murong's family. The three of them finally touched their palms and actually began to compete with each other's internal energy. A powerful force spread out from the three of them, impacting the surroundings. Murong Ying and Jiang Feng were shocked. Li Fan's internal energy was so strong that he could compete with the two of them. Li Fan, what are you trying to do? Third brother, I know that you like to fight, but as your brother, I have many things to do. Why don't you let me go and let your junior sister practice with you? The two of them were a little baffled. Could it be that Li Fan liked to fight? Murong Ying knew that Li Fan was a martial arts fanatic. However, fighting like this wasn't satisfying at all. You guys should have seen it too. It's not a problem for me to fight the two of you alone. Li Fan said proudly, after all, the two of you are at odds with each other. If you don't work together, it's impossible to defeat me. However, if the three of us continue fighting, I think we won't be able to determine a victor without 7 days and 7 nights. In the end, all three of us will suffer. Since you know that, why do you still force us to fight with you? Murong Ying didn't say anything. However, Jiang Feng had already thought it through. State your conditions. All right, let's not beat around the bush. My conditions are very simple. As for Jiang Feng, I want to fight with the Martial Imperial Hall in the future. As the representative of the Dove faction, you naturally have to deal with the Martial Imperial Hall. Therefore, my request is that when I challenge the Martial Imperial Hall, you must come out and help me once. Sure. Jiang Feng's eyes flickered and immediately agreed. He represented the interests of the Dove faction. Naturally, the Martial Imperial Hall had to be eliminated. The Dragon God number 1 had already ascended to the heavens. If the Seven Knights Villa and Murong Villa couldn't be eliminated, the upper echelons would probably start reshuffling. After all, the Dove faction was still a powerful force. It definitely wouldn't fall anytime soon. As long as he took advantage of the situation to eliminate the Martial Imperial Hall, the Dove faction might have a chance to make a comeback. As for my wife, I don't have any other requests. You can stay by my side and be my hired thug for a month. Hearing this, Jiang Feng sneered in his heart. As expected, he was a sentimental person. At this time, he still wanted to redeem his relationship with Murong Ying. Impossible. Murong Ying flatly refused. She couldn't stay by Li Fan's side anymore. Otherwise, sooner or later, she would lay down her arms and surrender. Wife, I'm borrowing you for a month because I have something important to do during this month. Li Fan said seriously, it's a huge matter that concerns my country. Therefore, you must help me. If you lie to me, you're dead meat. Originally, she wanted to curse Li Fan, but Murong Ying couldn't bear to do so. She merely rebuked him. Don't worry. When have I ever lied to you? Li Fan raised his voice. Jiang Feng, Murong Ying, let's call a truce for a month. During this month, we won't attack each other. How about it? All right, I'll agree to it. Jiang Feng nodded. This was exactly what he wanted. He had just increased his strength and needed to rest and consolidate his strength before making any plans. That's good. Let's do it like that. Li Fan was done with the foreplay and had some confidence in his heart. I'll count to 3, and the 3 of us will stop at the same time. How about it? Sure. The 3 of them agreed. When Li Fan counted to 3, they would stop at the same time. Bang! A huge force spread out. The 3 of them each took a step back. Li Fan's face was slightly red, but he quickly suppressed it. Second brother, good move. Li Fan said, but Jiang Feng was a bit baffled. Li Fan, I've already agreed to what you said. Let's meet again another day. After saying that, Jiang Feng turned his head and flew away like a big bird without sparing a glance at Shui Wuxin, who was standing at the side. After he left, Li Fan's expression finally relaxed. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He hurt you. Murong Ying immediately understood. She stepped forward and grabbed Li Fan's wrist. In Li Fan's Qi meridian, a surge of Azura Qi was running amok. You, fool. Li Fan saw that Murong Ying's eyes were actually a bit red. Chapter 1372. How is it? Murong Ying retracted her palms and looked at Li Fan, who was emitting 5 streams of white smoke above his head as she asked. She had already helped Li Fan heal his injuries for 3 consecutive days and finally dissolved the trace of Azura Qi in his body. Jiang Feng, you really deserve to die. Why did you leave him alive? Murong Ying angrily looked at Li Fan. If you want to deal with the Martial Imperial Palace, I'll help you. How can that be? Li Fan retracted his internal force and the white smoke above his head slowly dissipated. He raised his head and looked at the angry beauty in front of him and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Didn't you promise Murong Bo to be my enemy forever? Didn't you force me to be your fighter for a month? Murong Ying snorted. You're still saying this now, you're just pretending to be obedient. That's not the same. No matter what, the Martial Imperial Palace can be considered as our country's internal conflict. I asked you for help, even if I let you break the agreement with your father. But what I want you to join hands with me to deal with is another bigger threat. If this threat is not resolved, the entire world will cease to exist. Your Murong Villa and my 7 Knights Villa will also disappear. You're not helping me, but yourself. Li Fan's words flowed like a river, but he was secretly muttering in his heart. Fortunately, Murong Ying did not discover his little trick. This time, Li Fan could be considered to have gambled. When the 3 of them retracted their cultivation, Jiang Feng did not sneak attack him. Instead, he used the dragon engulfing thousand elephant to retain a portion of power from Jiang Feng's palm. After he retracted his cultivation, Li Fan forcibly sent this Azura Qi into his body and attacked his heart meridian. He pretended to be secretly injured by Jiang Feng in order to make Jiang Feng bear the name of treachery. This way, the things to be done later would be logical. Jiang Feng injured you like this. If it wasn't for me helping you, I'm afraid you would have been crippled even if you didn't die. It was not a trivial matter to have one's heart vein injured. Murong Ying couldn't help but blame Li Fan for being too conceited. I think it's better for me to kill my way to the royal guards and kill them all. He's just a clown. We don't have time to care about him. Li Fan, however, shook his head. As long as he's willing to abide by the 1-month agreement and not attack us, it's fine. What kind of threat is it that makes you take it so seriously? Murong Ying found it strange. She had never seen Li Fan look so serious, as if the end of the world was coming. You'll know soon enough. Li Fan stood up slowly. Counting the days, it's about time for the government to come looking for me. It was like fortune telling. As soon as Li Fan finished speaking, Chun Er's voice came from outside the door. Husband, General Ran is here to see you.